Lawless! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back and happy Monday. I hope your weekend was outstanding and amazing. And I hope you're ready to rock, baby, because Trump just signed a new EO. We are all going to Kid Rock concerts right now. Oval Office is underway. Here's what it sounds like.
Lots go in. They're automated, so you're...
But is there a company involved? You might not want to say.
No. Well, there's reselling markets off. Yeah.
I think I know, Peter. But that's all right. Don't get them involved. Maybe
what company do you think?
Maybe they're more innocent than we think. Huh?
Well, if you think of it, like if Ticketmaster sells a ticket, if you buy a ticket and go to a show, you're in a lot of ways their worst customer. Because they make another 17 whatever percentage every time that ticket resells. So they don't want to enforce the bots necessarily because they're making more money off it. The artists don't see any of that money, but that's not what I'm advocating for, is for me to make more money. I want the fans to have fair ticket prices, be able to go and enjoy more shows. I know people that they decide on a family vacation or going to their favorite concert once a year rather than, my parents used to go see multiple shows when you could afford them back in their day. And I'd like to take my ticket prices lower, but if I set my ticket prices low, these bots immediately eat them up and they resell for hundreds of dollars more, and I'm just making these bad actors rich.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a big step to getting it stopped. Do you have something, Brian?
Yeah, I do, actually. I actually feel that the consumer is going to take the money that they've saved and actually buy merch, which you guys have a big percentage of, or do concessions, which you guys split with the venue on that as well. So I think their money
we don't
goes
share
for
concessions a lot. But
No?
those are... We try to, but they don't want to share it in the beer prices and parking or any of that stuff. But the bottom line is there's money for everyone to be made. There's plenty of money to go around. No one's going to really lose here. Ticketmaster, if we can get a cap, they're going to lose some money. But I've already talked to CEO Michael, and he's given me his word. He's on board for it.
I was talking to Jacoby with Papa Roach earlier, and by the way, he's a big fan of what you're doing, President Trump, digging into this whole scalping and the bots. A lot of musicians, you can say that they're with Kid Rock.
Flashback
on this, without a doubt.
A lot of people are.
President Trump,
Peter?
would you ever wear a jacket like that?
I don't know. I was thinking about doing it for tomorrow. We have a big event coming up, and I was thinking about doing it, but I'm not sure.
So you recently bought a Tesla for White House staff to use, but now there's all these domestic terrorists targeting Teslas. Are the staff scared to drive it?
I don't think so. I haven't heard. They were complaining. I did buy one, and I let the staff use it. We have it parked conveniently, and one day we give it to Margot, one day we give it to Chamberlain, give it to Nat'l, we give it to everybody around, give it to Dan Scavino, but he's got so much money it doesn't matter. But they love the car, and it's a great car, and it's made here. It's made in the country. He's got a tremendous plant now in Texas, and he has one in California. Does a lot of his work here, and he's been really unfairly treated, in my opinion.
I drive one.
And
yeah,
there's this other story. I know it's hypothetical right now, but if you were allowed for some reason to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you?
I'd love that.
For his third term?
Well, because he already had two consecutive.
That would be a good one. I'd like that. No, people are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a third term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years, just about, almost close to 4 years. Time is flying, but it's still close to 4 years. And we're getting a lot of credit for having done a great job in the first almost 100 days. And we have some big things we're going to be announcing over the next 2 days that you know very well, Peter. And I think it's going to be something that's going to bring a lot of wealth back to our country, tremendous wealth back to our country, actually. And other countries are understanding it because they've been ripping us for 50 years longer, but they've been ripping us off for years, right from the beginning. And I think this is going to be an amazing, I call it a lot of different names, but it's really, in a sense, it's a rebirth of a country because how we could have afforded to do what we did. We help everybody, and they don't help us. The term I like best probably is the liberation of America. It's a liberation of this country because it's incredible. Look, we have 36 trillion in debt for a reason, and that accumulates over a long period of time. So I think what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of days will be very inspiring to a lot of people. You know, they had a lot of auto plants being built in a certain country. I don't want to mention the country because we get along great with the country, but those plants aren't being built there anymore. They gave them up today and yesterday, day before, and they're building them all now in the United States. And we have many examples, not only auto plants, chip companies from Taiwan are coming in. The biggest, Mr. Wei, he's big. I said, you are a smart guy, aren't you? I've been reading about him over the years, but he controls a large portion of the chip business, as you know. You don't get smarter. They're going to be investing $200 or $300 billion. Apple's investing $500 billion. You know, they always built their places in China. Now he's building here. I think because of you speak to Tim Cook, because of the election, but maybe more importantly because of the tariffs. You know, he's got really an obligation to do it. But we have many, many companies that you haven't even heard of. But I think we'll be at $5 trillion very soon. And if you think about this, we've never been anywhere near that. I don't know if we've ever been at $1 trillion. What
do you mean by that?
We're 500. What do I mean by trillion?
5 trillion. What are you referring to, sir?
I think that we're going to be at $5 trillion of investment. I think you're going to have investments very shortly. We're already 3.5, and we have commitments, verbal commitments for a lot more. And numbers like that have never been done in this country. And it's going to get harder. This is in 2 months. It's really in less than 2 months, because since we've really gone out with it. And we have other interesting things happening. But to me, the whole tariff situation, and essentially they've done that to us for many years. So if we're anywhere near $5 trillion in 2 months, this could be numbers like the country's never seen. And every time you hear a dollar spent, that's another job, because the jobs are coming with it. So auto plants, chip plants, pharmaceuticals, lumber coming in. We have things happening in this country. I'm not sure that they've ever seen it. Steel, you know, we have tariffs on steel. They've been here for a while. Steel and aluminum. Nobody's ever seen anything like we're witnessing now. Nobody's ever seen anything. Most of you agree with that. I mean, it's nothing much you can't agree with. We have things happening in terms of jobs and investment, the likes of which I don't think we've ever seen. If you look at, let's say, $4 to $5 trillion in a period of a month and a half, that's even more than you do with your concerts, which are always sold out, right? Nobody's ever seen numbers. And think of it, where Apple's at $500 billion, as I said, but they always used to spend that money in China. Now they're spending it here. That means they're going to build. Now, they don't have any tariffs. Remember, there are no tariffs if you do your product here, if you build whatever it is in the USA. One of the things we're also trying to get is if you buy a car that was built in the USA, you get a deduction on interest. So if you go out and borrow money to buy a car, if it's built in the USA, never been done before, it's a big deduction for people that really aren't used to deductions, frankly, because people that buy cars like that are not big into the world of deductions, and now they're going to learn about deductions. So I think it's going to be great. Yeah.
Are you going to move ahead with a universal tariff or different individual tariff rates on a whole variety of different?
Well, you're going to see in 2 days, which is maybe tomorrow night or probably Wednesday. You're going to see
Liberation Day.
They're reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe. They took advantage of us, and we are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind.
Mr. President, you met with the chairman.
Somebody said that about me the other day. They said, who doesn't know me very well, they said, "You're such a kind person."
Yeah.
And I said, "Say that again." They said, "You're a kind person." I said, "I've never heard that before." It was a weird statement. I was kind. I've heard of words that, I don't know, I better not tell you. You know, I've been called a lot of things, but it's sort of a different kind of a word. It's
He's
like an
nice
old-fashioned
guy.
word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mr. President, you met with the chairman of Stellantis today. Did
Yes.
he ask you for a pause on the auto tariffs?
No.
What was that meeting about?
Just about some of the problems they have with the environmental, which we're going to clean up.
Have any of the automakers...
We're going to probably go back to 1920. If you look, we're going to go back probably to a 2020 standard. So we'll have 2020 standard, and that's just a few years ago. Oh, they're making it so difficult all over the world. They're making it. It doesn't mean a damn bit of difference even for the environment. It doesn't matter. They make it impossible for people to build cars. So we're going to be doing much different. 2020 is a strong standard, but they've taken it to a level now that makes it very difficult to build a car. So we're going to be bringing it back to a standard that is a very good environmental standard, but it makes it possible to build a car.
Have you heard any concerns from the automakers, though, about the tariffs on parts that will go into effect over the coming weeks, about what that's going to mean for the price of...
Well, I gave them a big break for a month. I didn't charge them anything, for a big month, for that first month, and they brought a lot of material into this country because they could bring it in without tariff. If you look at Canada and Mexico, they were driving hundreds of thousands of cars into the market because they avoid the tariffs by doing it before the tariffs go on, which would be Wednesday. And I saw some of your shows where cars are lined up for miles and miles. Some of them didn't have fenders on them. Some of them didn't have the roof on yet. They're driving it here brand new. They're driving it in because they want to avoid the tariffs. I let them have that. They sort of took advantage of it because, that wasn't part of the deal, but that's okay.
Are there any
They're great American car companies, and so I gave them a little break on that. Yeah.
Are there any countries that you're not targeting on Wednesday?
Well, it depends. I said it's reciprocal. Not everybody has made a fortune, but almost everybody has, but not everybody. And the ones that haven't, we're going to be very nice to them.
And on a separate issue...
Because that word reciprocal is very important. What they do to us, we do to them. Okay.
Can I just ask you briefly on President Putin? You said over the weekend, or indicated over the weekend, some frustration with him. How serious are you about imposing oil sanctions on Russian
I want to
oil?
see him make a deal so that we stop Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers and other people from being killed. But mostly it's Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. They're losing at least 2,500 human beings, beautiful human beings, a week. And I wanted to stop. And some people would say, why do you worry about Russian soldiers or Ukrainian soldiers? I worry because they're just like you people. They're like us. They're like all of us. And I seem to have an ability to do those things. And if I can do that, I think it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And I think we will. And no, I want to make sure that he follows through, and I think he will. I don't want to go secondary tariffs on his oil, but I think, it's something I would do if I thought he wasn't doing the job. I did it with Venezuela, secondary tariffs, and you know what happened? Every boat left the harbor. Did you see that? It was a beautiful thing to see. The whole harbor emptied out. My words weren't even finished. I have these massive ships. They're actually taking the hoses and dumping them into there. They couldn't get out of there fast enough because they know I don't play games. So I think he's going to live up to what he told me, and I think he's going to fulfill his part of the deal. Now, then you have Zelensky, and hopefully he's going to live up. I see he's trying to renegotiate the rare earth. We did something because, as you know, the Europeans get paid back the money that they gave, and we don't, because Biden is an incompetent president. And he should have asked for rare earth, or he should have asked for the loans to be guaranteed in some form. That's what Europe did. Europe is in for probably $100 billion. And we're in for $350 billion. So we're in for more than 3 times. And now you could make it a little bit less than that, but it doesn't matter, whatever the number. We're in for substantially more than Europe. We could be in for $350 billion. They have no idea because Biden wasn't a good bookkeeper except for himself. And what happens is we made a deal for rare earth. It was all done. And I heard through you, I haven't spoken to them yet, but through you, I heard that they're now saying, well, I'll only do that deal if we get into NATO or something to that effect. Well, that was never, number one, discussed. Number two, I think it's going to be long before Putin, they said you're not going into NATO. And it could be, that's probably the reason the war started, actually.
We're hours away from a very special election. Wisconsin, Florida. I want to share your thoughts on Republican voters to not sleep on this. These are two very important races you got in the
Get out in Wisconsin.
It's a big race, Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. It's taking place essentially as it was early voting, and so we'll see what happens. It's a big race. I love Wisconsin. We won Wisconsin. Republicans typically don't do very well in Wisconsin, but I did. I actually won it twice. I actually probably won it 3 times, to be exact.
We played their side.
Not probably. I won it 3 times. And we had a rigged election the second time, but that's one of those things. We had to make this one too big to rig. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yes,
too big
sir.
to rig?
Yes, sir.
So anyway, but there's a big race, and I hope you get out and vote for the Republican. The woman is a radical left lunatic, and let's see who wins. But the woman will be very bad, and Wisconsin's a big state politically, and the Supreme Court has a lot to do with elections in Wisconsin. So if whoever it is that's running, including even Senate races, etc., but whoever it is in 4 years that runs. Having Wisconsin is a very big, we won it early and big, but winning Wisconsin's a big deal. So therefore, the Supreme Court choice, that is the one you're talking about right now. It's a big race. It's going to be announced fairly shortly.
President Trump, on TikTok, big week of deadlines. You got Liberation Day and the TikTok deadline is this
we
week.
do, which I can extend if I want, but we have a lot of enthusiasm for TikTok, for buying it. I think TikTok is good. I used it I was a great TikTok guy, and we won by 36 points, the youth. We won the youth, which Republicans don't do. Maybe it's because Kid Rock likes Trump, I don't know, but we won the youth by 36 points, and I attribute some of that to TikTok.
Is the TikTok deal, the negotiations now, tied to a bigger tariff deal with China?
No, but it could be. I mean, I've used tariffs for lots of different reasons, but I could see, 1 point in tariffs with China, big country, would be probably worth more than all of TikTok, as valuable as TikTok is. It's big stuff. So there's a great example. That's a great question, actually. I'm a very flexible person. I could use that for that. Like, maybe I'll take a couple of points off if I get approvals for something. I haven't done it. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But it's a very good question. Peter, you're very good.
Thank you. You'll love this one.
Go ahead.
It's not front page news, but I am just curious. What is your thought about Tiger Woods now becoming part of the broader Trump family?
Well, I love Tiger, and I love Vanessa, and they had a great relationship. I happen to think the relationship with my son, I happen to think the relationship was hurt very badly by the witch hunt that went on, Russia, and all the crap that they put Don through, who knew nothing about it. But Vanessa and Don had a very good relationship. They have incredible children, 5 incredible children, all good athletes, all great students. They're great. And they broke up, quite a while ago, and which was to me very sad because I think they're both great, Don and Vanessa. And Tiger actually called me a few months ago, and I have a very special, very good relationship with Tiger. I played golf with him a couple of times over the last month, and he's a fantastic guy and a fantastic athlete. And he told me about it, and I said, Tiger, that's good. That's good. I'm very happy for both. I just let them both be happy. Let them both be happy. They're both great.
To follow up on China, China, South Korea, and Japan say they're going to work together in cooperation to respond to the tariffs that you're going to put into effect this week. Are you concerned that this move of the tariffs this week could push some of the United States' closest allies to work with China?
No, I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
Mr. President, can I ask you about something?
I think they have a chance of doing better, actually, with the tariffs. It can actually help them in a certain way. And I think a lot of them will drop their tariffs because, they've been unfairly tariffing the United States for years. And if you look at the European Union on cars, the European Union already dropped their tariff down to 2.5%. It was announced a couple of days ago, which is what which is a very small tariff. The United States charged very little. And I think I heard that India just a little while ago is going to be dropping its tariffs very substantially. And I said, why didn't somebody do this a long time ago? A lot of countries are going to be dropping their tariffs.
About something that happened in France today, Mr. President. Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, got convicted in court and is now banned from running for office for 5 years. Do you have a comment on that?
That's a big deal.
Yep.
That's a very big deal. I know all
Trump
about
too.
it, and a lot of people thought she wasn't going to be convicted of anything, and I don't know if it means conviction, but she was banned for running for 5 years, and she's the leading candidate. That sounds like this country. That sounds very much like this country.
4 times.
Okay, anybody else?
You've been presented with a bunch of proposals for tariffs by your advisors. They've been talking about that idea publicly.
And who?
That your advisors have presented ideas
They
to you
do.
about tariffs and what to do in the next 2 days. Have you settled?
Well, you're going to see. I've settled, a long time ago. But we talk about it. We talk about it a lot. And we want to do what's right for the country and even the world. It affects the world, not just this country. This has been the piggy bank for the entire world. So it really does affect the world, and that's important to me also. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. President, in the past you have said that you want the quick return of Austin Tice, a Marine Corps veteran and a journalist who went missing in Syria over 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Have efforts been made to locate Austin Tice been extended beyond Syria, including potential leads in Iran? And do you have plans to get in touch with Miss Deborah Tice, the mother of Miss Austin Tice, and also at the same time, organizations like Hostage Aid Worldwide have been on the ground in Syria, searching for Austin Tice for many years. Can I get your comment on the potential future plans to locate Austin Tice and to bring him home finally?
So we've been looking, as you know, for Austin for years. I don't know about Biden. I don't think Biden was looking for anything, but we were. And there's been virtually no sign, you know that. There's been no sign of Austin. An incredible young guy. Be less young now. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been many, many years. The mother is fantastic. She's a very committed mother that her whole life is to find her son, who was in Syria and just disappeared off the face of the earth. So, a lot of bad things happen. But we're always... we will never, until we find out something definitive, one way or the other, we'll never stop looking for him. But we have been, and the response, it's just a lot of dead ends. He's been gone for a long time. The problem is there's never been a sighting. Sometimes you'll have somebody you're looking for him, and there's a sighting. There's never been a sighting of Austin. But we are out there, and we have great respect for his family and for his mother. She's been unbelievable. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, a question about...
no, behind you.
Oh, apologies.
Yes, you've had outreach with the leaders of Russia and China. You've made an outreach to Iran. When are you going to plan to reach out to North Korea and Kim Jong-un? Anytime in the near future?
Well, I do. I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. Now, you people hate to hear that, but it's very important. I got along with him fantastically, as you know. It started off very rough, very nasty. Little rocket man, the whole thing was a nasty deal. And then one day we got a call that they'd like to meet. We met. We have a great relationship. And, we have, there is communication, I think it's very important. He's a big nuclear nation. And he's a very smart guy. I got to know him very well. I put my foot across the line, and then I walked across the line.
Crazy.
I don't know if Secret Service was thrilled with that. They actually wasn't. They were not too thrilled. But I have a very good relationship with him. Yeah, we'll probably do something at some point. Yeah, please, Jeff.
Who's on your short list, Mr. President, to replace Elise Stefanik as U.S. Ambassador to the UN?
So we have a lot of good people that want it. First of all, Elise is fantastic, and I just don't want to take chances with you guys saying, how is the election going? We have a congressional election that's a little bit close. I guess the one is in good shape, but the other one's a little bit close. But Randy Fine is a great guy. They're both good candidates. They're very good. But it's, a little bit, we want to be careful. And Elise is very popular in her district, and so am I. We won by a lot of points, and so did she. And there's a lot of people that wanted to run for it, but we have no idea, are they going to win? I think it's just security. And I said, at least,
We're not sending
what about
anyone.
going back? Because they love you there, and she's going to take a big leadership position with Mike Johnson and the group, the speaker. And I can tell you that for the replacement, we have a lot of people that have asked about it and would like to do it. David Friedman, Rick Grinnell, and maybe 30 other people. Everyone loves that position. That's a star-making position.
Yeah, UN.
And so we'll see what happens.
Exit.
But
Cancel.
we have a lot of people that are interested in going to the United Nations, as you can imagine. Yeah.
Just want to get a quick music question. Favorite song to play live is what? And then my question for you, Mr. President, your favorite rally you did last year, 2024. What was your favorite one?
Favorite song to play live?
Yeah, favorite song to play live.
Oh,
that's a
they're
tough
for
one.
Kid Rock. Right? For Trump.
It'd have to be one of the hits, probably Cowboy or Ball with the Bar. There's a song that I've played every night that was never a singular hit that I probably should not say the words to in this office right now.
And then for you, Mr.
You never met a certain
by the
person
way,
like
his
me.
rallies are amazing. He does great and gets big crowds. He's really a star when it comes to that. He is a very talented guy. I would say maybe Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Because anybody that was there, the owner of the garden, Jim Dolan, who's, to me, always been terrific. He said he's never seen anything like it. We had, when you announced Madison Square Garden, it's a big arena, but we sell out big arenas. We sold out in Milwaukee. We sold out at every big arena. We never had empty seats. It's amazing. They talk about Bernie Sanders gets 2,000 or 3,000 people. Everyone said, these crowds, I get 107,000 people in New Jersey. In Butler, PA, we had over 100,000 the second time. We had 55,000 the first time. We have big crowds. I would say Madison Square Garden because I grew up in New York and the garden is great. Jim Dolan treated us well, but everybody said because I think I could have filled it up 10 times. We had hundreds of thousands of people that were stacked all the way back to the Hudson River and on the other direction, back to Fifth Avenue. Nobody's ever seen. I don't mean with a line. I mean like 50 deep, this way. The streets were closed, the whole thing. It was crazy. And when you take that, you want to do well at Madison Square Garden. You don't want to have empty seats. But we could have sold it out, Brian, 10 times, and everybody knew it. And I think we got a good indication that that's where the election was going. And we won every swing state, and we won by millions of votes. It was a great election. Yeah.
Mr. President, the U.S. military transferred 17 individuals to El Salvador overnight. Did you discuss with your team whether these deportations would run afoul of any recent court orders?
No, I do want to thank, however, the president. He has been unbelievable, and in relation to us. But I think that our people have done an incredible job. I got elected on the basis of getting bad people out of our country that shouldn't be here, very dangerous people out of our country. And that's what I did. And then you have a judge that wants to take over, and I can't imagine it can be allowed. If it was up to him, they'd all be put back in our country. And these are killers. Yeah. These are drug lords. These are really bad people. But I want to thank the president of El Salvador because he's done an amazing job. You saw it. Yeah.
Elon Musk's special government tenure is coming to an end, 130 days, I think another month. Yeah. Do you want him to stay longer, or is it time for him to go back to running his companies in Europe?
Well, I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run, and so at some point he's going to be going back. He wants to.
Did you want to keep him around?
But, I'd keep him as long as I could keep him. He's a very talented guy. I love very smart people. And he's very smart, and he's done a good job. Doge has, we found numbers that nobody can even believe, like 400 billion, 500 billion. It could be close to $1 trillion by the time they end on different things. And he's led the charge, and you've seen a lot of his people. And these are people that joined up. I always say they're high IQ people. I like high IQ people. And they've done a great job. No, at some point, Elon's going to want to go back to his company. I will say he's got, despite the way he's been treated, so he's an American patriot, but the way he's been treated with Tesla is just terrible. It's just terrible.
Once he goes
in fact, you have a Tesla. And you love it. You love. He was saying before he bought a Tesla, he loved it. A lot of people are buying Teslas, I think, and I hope they are. He should not be treated that way.
Right.
He's done an incredible service to our country.
But once he goes back, is Doge going to keep operating even without Elon here?
Well, I can't tell you that. I can say this, that a lot of the people that are working with Doge are the secretaries, the heads of the various agencies, and they've learned a lot, and they're dealing with the Doge people. I think some of them may try and keep the Doge people with them, but, at a certain point, I think it will end. But they have also gotten a big education, and they're doing a really good job. There'll be a point at which the secretaries will be able to do this work and do it very, as we say, with the scalpel. And that's what we want. Yeah, Jeff?
Mr. President, have you had any updates on the U.S. soldiers missing in Lithuania?
I have.
Can you give us an update?
So 3 are no longer with us, and 1 is unfortunately probably in the same category, but they haven't declared that yet. It was a very heavy truck, like a toy, but really heavy, that lifted the heaviest equipment. And it would seem that the bank of the lake collapsed. The weight is so big. And it was at night, and it was very cold weather, and ice, a lot of ice. And it's possibly slipped, and the weight is so enormous of this thing. It's a massively heavy vehicle. And if they slipped a little bit, that's probably what happened, and it flipped. And 3 are gone, and 1 is missing.
On a separate topic, follow up on immigration. Did you see the video of the Tufts University student who was taken off the street by ICE agents last week in hoodies and masks? There's been a lot of criticism of that. Are you comfortable with how that was handled?
Well, I haven't really looked at it in any detail, but I will. I have seen it quickly, but not. I wouldn't want to comment on. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, would you be able to confirm recent reporting that you are making plans to go to Saudi Arabia next month? And if so, why is Saudi Arabia so important?
So, I have a very good relationship with the Middle East. In fact, if you look at Michigan, I won the vote by a lot. People were a little surprised. And I have a very good relationship with Mohammed and the king. His son is Mohammed. He's great. Crown Prince, actually, he's Prime Minister, too. He's got a lot of good titles. But he's great. And the king has been wonderful. And if you remember, last time I went to Saudi Arabia, I put him first on the list because they agreed to buy $450 billion worth of American goods, military and otherwise. And they did. And it was an unbelievable day. It was in this gorgeous ballroom, and companies were there from many, probably 100 companies. And they were given anywhere from $40 or $50 million to less. And more, actually. In case some of them were given numbers that were just many times that amount. I think we had a couple of $20 billion deals and big stuff. And it's a very rich country because of oil. And we are a very rich country ultimately when we straighten it out because of oil. Oil is always good. And I agreed to do it again, and they've agreed to spend close to $1 trillion of money in our American companies, which to me means jobs. So they're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars giving them to American companies that are going to be making equipment for Saudi Arabia and other places in the Middle East. And for that, I think it's worth it. I did it last time, $450 billion, and the press was there. It was one of the most unique days I've ever seen, where companies would get up and you're getting $20 billion. They named the company. The chairmen were all there, every chairman and top person in the company. You remember that, Peter? I don't know if you were there. You might be too young for that.
I was on the Democratic campaign trail.
That was boring. This was a much better deal. But it was amazing, actually. It was an amazing day. We sold and we partook in $450 billion worth of investment into American companies. And they announced the company, the amount of money, $1 billion, $5 billion, $25 billion. And the chairman of the company, many of whom, well-known figures, prestigious figures, great business leaders, they went up, they shook the hand of somebody, and they would sit down, and we just had a big investment made. So It was a record. Nobody ever beat it before. $450 billion worth of jobs. I view it as jobs more than anything else. And now we're close to $1 trillion. So it's more than double the number that we did when I first came to office.
And this trip takes place next month.
It could be next month, maybe a little bit later, yeah. And we're going to Qatar also. And also we're going to possibly a couple of other countries. UAE is very important. It's a great leader in UAE. And I had his brother here the other night, if you saw that. We had a wonderful guy, a wonderful family. So we'll probably stop at UAE and Qatar, and as I used to call it, Qatar. Nobody's ever told me right or wrong. I always like to say Qatar, but it's Qatar. Right. They like to say Qatar. And Saudi Arabia, right. The three of them, and then we'll go other places also. But in the Middle East, those seem to be the three. And again, tremendous amounts of jobs will be created in those 2 or 3 days. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press. Headed out that door right there. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
Wow. All right. So a nice conversation with the president and Kid Rock today inside the Oval Office. And my friends, it's great to be with you today. Happy Monday. Welcome back. We hardly got to say our hellos. We jumped right into business with the president inside the Oval Office, but we still have a bunch of other business to attend to today. And so let me explain what's coming up right now. We've got 3 segments that we're queuing up. We got a bitter Obama judge, 20 states going to SCOTUS, and liberal lawyers abandoning their friends. Let's start the day off by talking about this judge. Her name is Amy Berman Jackson. And we are getting situated to get into it again. And so let's start right here. Amy Berman Jackson, a D.C. judge, now getting appealed again. This one is going up to the D.C. Court of Appeals. We're going to go through the filing today. She wrote a very upset screed that went after Elon Musk and everybody. This is from the Trump administration. She is suing, or this is the judge presiding over the case where Trump is being sued via Russell Vought and his role as the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And so this judge, her name is Amy Berman Jackson, and from my notes, you can see she was appointed by Obama in 2011, and she has been an anti-Trump judge for a long time. She was someone who went to Harvard. She worked on the Paul Manafort, Roger Stone case, handled January 6 defendants, former federal prosecutor, and has even been involved in the Barr memo and the Mueller report and all of that stuff. Okay, now she has been somebody we've talked about here before already. In fact, we covered the Hampton-Dellinger case, and she was the person who forced Hampton to come back into his position, but she just lost that one. All right, so that case has now been dismissed. We see this came down from the Court of Appeals. She's already lost once before. They said the district court's order from Judge Amy Berman Jackson are vacated, and the case is remanded with instructions to dismiss the case with prejudice. Okay, so she's already lost, but she came down and issued another order because she's so mad about this against Trump, against Russell Vought. And this case was brought by another union, and the union was suing the CFPB, okay, one of these agencies that says, you can't fire us. And she wrote 112 pages on this. We're not going to spend a lot of time here because Trump is appealing this, and he'll give us what we need to know in his filing. But I wanted to show you what she put at the start of this, right? At the very opening part of her memo, she's such a Democrat loon that she quoted Elon. Elon said, CFBP, rest in peace. She's like, and then the CFBP says Russell Vought, he posted this. He works for Trump now, elected by the American people, says the CFBP has been a woke and weaponized agency against disfavored industries and individuals for a long time. This must end. Like, she's like, see, they're talking about eliminating it. And then Trump said on February 10th, he said this was a very important thing to get rid of, right? So she's like 3 for 3. I'm mad. So we'll just hit the quick opening on this. She says the motion for preliminary injunction, which came in front of her, which she's going to say in the final order here, that Trump has to keep this agency open, right? So their initial order was basically to close this agency, dismantle it, much like USAID and the others. And here she's saying, nope, can't do that. So they think that they're the president now. Listen to this opening. She says, the motion for this injunction to be decided boils down to one question. Should the court, me, Amy, take action to preserve this bureau now before the case concerning its fate has been resolved? She says, you know, that is an extraordinary step. Yeah, of course. Yeah, she's stealing the executive branch. And before it can step in the court must conclude that they're going to win and that an injunction would be in the public interest. And she says, look, the court has made those findings, and the answer is an overwhelming yes. The court can and must act. It's like, all right, just relax over there. Now, she goes on for 112 pages. Okay, it's just like nuts. Trump is appealing this, so we'll just read his interpretation of what she said. And of course, she's already lost once before, so we don't really care what she says. She just got obliterated on the Hampton-Dellinger case. And so in conclusion, she says, the court cannot look away because CFBP will be dissolved and dismantled in 30 days. And this court won't even have come to a conclusion yet. And so we're going to grant the injunction, and she's going to maintain, right? Trump said, your agency is gone. Nobody wants you anymore. Go. She said, sorry, the agency's existence is going to come on back. You have to preserve the contracts, the workforce, the data, the operational capacity, everything. Now, the court is aware, but this is broad enough, blah, blah, blah. Separate order will issue, signed by Amy Berman Jackson, Democrat, hack lawyer, judge. So as you can see, Trump is appealing this. So here's what they've submitted up to the Court of Appeals. They've said, all right, listen, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And as I mentioned, she already lost once. Okay. She's already come down, lost the Hampton-Dellinger case. So she's about to go 0 for 2. Hope it was worth it, Amy. So she is now getting appealed. And here's what Trump said. Listen, all right, Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals is no fan of Trump either. Okay. But they're a little bit more level-headed than the other lower level district judges. Says, all right, Court of Appeals, we are here on an emergency motion for a stay. She says that we have to bring this agency back. We're asking that you say we don't. So the unions, once again, who are just working as public servants for the betterment of America, are suing our own government that said we don't need your services anymore. They don't care. So here's what Trump's DOJ writes. They say, all right, listen, Judge. Amy, in this case, believed that judicial intervention was necessary to preserve this useless agency, pending the resolution of their claims. But instead of prohibiting Trump from eliminating the agency or falling below any statutory minimum baseline, what she did instead is entered an extraordinary 8-part injunction order whose requirements sweep even far beyond the punitive problem that they identified. In effect, Judge Amy in D.C. has indefinitely frozen the CFBP as it stood before Trump's inauguration. Now, there is no legal basis for that relief, which stymies lawful reforms and imposes restrictions on the executive branch akin to judicial receivership, right? In other words, Amy Berman Jackson is now in charge of that agency. Now, therefore, Trump respectfully requests an emergency stay, and if not that, an immediate administrative stay. And so Trump says, we have repeatedly explained that, absent congressional action, we've told you this, the Bureau will remain open and continue to perform its statutory functions, okay? And this is the same point we've made many times over here. Like they keep saying, it's dismantled, it's shuttered, it's gonna die. It's like, no, they still have people getting paychecks from USAID. Okay, relax. The whole agency is not gonna be shuttered or entirely dismantled. They don't have a building anymore, but that's okay. Okay, we made them a little name tag out of a piece of paper, just folded it into a little triangle, and we wrote, loser head here. And he's now got a desk in a corner somewhere. He's got a name tag. He's got an office. He's working fine. That's all we need. Statutory has been complied with. Great. It says, although an injunction narrowly tailored to ensuring that result would have therefore been unwarranted, right? In other words, you can't force us to keep something open when it's already open. We've kept it open. So you can't injunction us to do that. The government would not need to seek emergency relief. But the district court fashioned relief that went far beyond addressing what they were even complaining about when they filed this lawsuit. So Trump says, despite recognizing that this agency, the CFBP, does have discretionary authorities, and despite acknowledging the impropriety of a judicial intrusion into the executive branch, Judge Amy Berman Jackson imposed sweeping restrictions and affirmative requirements affecting administration of all routine bureau operations and personnel decisions and contract management. So it's not like just don't close the agency. It's do what Biden was doing, essentially, like restore it back to its original form. Apparently treating the CFBP as it existed on January 19, 2025. All of Trump's changes reverted back, saying that is what the statute says. Okay, Biden was following the law exactly. You have to go back to that. In fact, they ordered the rehiring of every employee, the reinstatement of every contract, the refrainment from reducing its workforce or stopping work that might be inconsistent with Trump. It's like Trump never won at all. It's like Joe Biden's still in charge because this judge said so. So they write, this is lawless. Court of Appeals. These commands have no anchor in statute. They don't track any specific duties that Congress said we have to do. Nothing in any statute anywhere requires President Trump to maintain or administer the Bureau in the same way Joe Biden did, nor does anything prohibit the Bureau's leadership from using normal tools like reductions in force or contract terminations to manage the Bureau. But instead of enforcing the law, what Judge Amy did out of D.C. is issued a preliminary injunction, and she is now micromanaging our lawful discretion to control this branch of government. It is the president who is publicly accountable for these operations, not her, but she has seized the Bureau's reins. Amy offered no explanation for deeming its far-reaching directives necessary to ensure the Bureau's continued operation, nor any other justification for intruding into the executive. Now, because Trump's government is likely to succeed in challenging this, and because the Bureau will continue to perform its minimum duties, and they're not going to suffer any harm, and because the government and the public will be harmed if you are allowing us to give control back of this over to basically Biden, then we're going to be harmed. An appeal is warranted. Writing, we also asked for a stay, and here's why. You know, judges of the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., in 2010, Congress created the CFBP, right? Congress created. It was an agency within the Federal Reserve System as part of a series of reforms after the 2008 financial crisis, the Dodd-Frank reforms. Now, in service of these goals, the statute says that CFBP must establish units that track consumer complaints and blah. Now, following January 25, after the presidential transition, the CFBP underwent significant leadership changes. While initial communications and actions caused the district court to believe that the administration intended to wind down the agency made clear the agency and the Bureau will remain open, okay? So, like, they're cutting everything. They're like, well, Congress doesn't say we have to keep this open, so we're cutting it. They start hinting that, and they say, oh, well, Congress actually specifically created this one. All right, fine, we'll keep it open. So then on January 31st, the president appointed Scott Bessent, also Russell Vought. Under the new leadership, the agency instituted a temporary freeze while they consider their broader operations. We saw that across the board. On February 3rd, they said, hey, don't issue new guidance, don't issue new litigation, right? Kind of a pause. Similar email went out on February 8th. There were internal directives that also went out. And then on February 11th, boom, 85 probationary employees fired. The agency also instructed staff to get out of your office, get your boxes and go. They canceled non-essential contracts. Around the same time, the CFBP informed the Federal Reserve that it would not require new funding for the third quarter. No, we don't need any money. We got enough money to carry out our duties. Okay, so we're good. As the new leadership team, which is just wild, right? They say, actually, we're good on money. A government bureaucracy said, we're good on money, don't need any more. Thanks. Amazing. It's like a real country. As the new leadership team established itself and evaluated the agency's operations, however, the Bureau made clear that it remained committed. We're going to keep it open. It's going to be like one guy in an office in a corner, but it's going to be open. As Chief Operating Officer explained, the new agency leadership is not seeking closure. Hello, relax. We're just going to refocus our priorities. And we just don't need as many people for that. This perspective was reflected in more communications. In fact, Mark Paletta sent an all-hands email, said the same thing. But then these so-called civil servants and these union people, they ended up suing. The plaintiffs are 2 CFBP employee unions, 3 consumer advocacy organizations, and the husband of a deceased pastor who had student loans. Okay, they got that. All right. Like, who's like the most sympathetic victim that we can find to sue? A husband of a deceased pastor, which is interesting. And then that guy has student loans. So it's just like, wow, horrible. So on February, it was like, we have to give them all their money back. So we have to hire them all back. And Trump is a dictator because of that one widowed person. All right. Anyways, on February 13th, so then they filed an amended complaint. They sought a TRO. The district court judge, Amy Berman Jackson, held an evidentiary hearing and continued to argue the agency was improperly winding down its operations. You can't close this down. Congress said so. The district court then, Amy, granted the motion for a preliminary injunction just days ago. The court found that they were going to win, and they said that their agency was being shut down because they have a plan to shut it down, and you have to put it all back. Rehire everybody, reinstate the contracts, get back in compliance. Now, after awarding the 8-point injunction, the district court said, why shouldn't I do even more? Trump said, I want you to tell us by today, March 31st, why they are no longer seeking the restriction on the money from the Federal Reserve. Like, you have to take your money back too. So we're appealing this, obviously. It says we're going to win this. A preliminary injunction is obviously an extraordinary remedy. Amy just thinks she can shove this down our throats? No. Here, Amy believed that an injunction was necessary to preserve this bureau's existence. In fact, that's totally unfounded, okay? We've told her like 15 times that we're going to remain open, okay? We're going to do everything Congress mandated us to do. But even if they're justified with their concerns, there's no reason for 8 parts in injunctions here. It's far beyond anything that's even being complained about here. The district court predicated its award on all these 8 orders, saying that the CFBP was on the brink of irreversible closure, that they were all going to die. They're going to be dissolved. They're going to be dismantled in 30 days. It's all going to come crashing down, and we know. Got it. So given that concern, all they could have done was entered a narrower order. By the way, and leadership has already said that they're going to not close it. Instead of entering an injunction narrowly tailored, though, they didn't do that. For example, the injunction said, reinstate all the probationary people, reinstate every single contract, issue notices that any RIFs are rescinded, stop your enforcement of any prior stop work orders, and revert everything back to how it was under Joe. Now, this is built on a contradiction, Court of Appeals. They stopped our leadership from even using the regular management tools. We can't even just evaluate contracts. We can't even use like other statutes. Even more remarkably, the district court provided not a word of explanation. Oh, this is great. Not anywhere in its 100+ page opinion. See, we skipped it. They read it. They're like, there's nothing in there either. We skipped it because like there's nothing in there. It's an opinion from Amy, so who cares? And they're like, yeah, there's not even in there. She's just a ranting screed, just like Beryl Howell. When she had too much wine that one night, and she was like, I'm not recusing myself. All right, Beryl. Yeah, just put the bottle. It's time for bed, says someone. Now, if for instance, the injunction requires that the Bureau rescind all notices of contract termination, regardless of how or why it was canceled. Amy's in charge. The injunction also prohibits the agency from finalizing any other contract terminations, and she's in charge now. So the district court also had no basis for this at all, writes Trump. They required the agency to do this and stop this, and they're going through this saying, look, she wants us to get in here and adjust our Citrix virtual desktops. She's like, did you update your software over there? Well, let me know when you updated it. Okay, thanks, Judge. The district court's prohibition on temporary work stoppages is also stripping them of their otherwise lawful power. They can't justify this. This stop work order, the agency has already made clear, Judge. How many times do we have to tell you, Amy? The intent of the pause is not to stop work. We just want to make sure we have operational control over this and clear out the pronouns in everybody's email signatures. In any event, even if Judge Amy Berman Jackson's concerns about the goals were justified, she relied and made an error by issuing all of the things that she did. She is basically requiring a continuation of the Bureau activities as of January 19th, period, end of story. This is so overbroad. It is a striking situation. Even Amy said, this case is not about how the executive exercises his discretion. What? They say the judge explicitly noted that its analysis would be different if the court were being asked to enjoin a decision about how vigorously it will enforce its provisions. She said that would bear heavily on her analysis. So she says, she's like, well, I'm only acting now because you're going to close it. They're like, no, we're not. We said we're not going to close it. She's like, well, I think you are. So I'm ordering you to keep it open as exactly Joe Biden did. So we can't so even if we keep it open, we can't shrink it or modify it at all anyway. Nope. So we deserve a stay, they write to the DC Court of Appeals. They say these sweeping and intrusive restrictions on all of this, they locked us into a static operational structure that prevents leadership from determining how to best manage the agency. And if we issue a stay here, it's not going to harm them. The district court, Amy, was unequivocal that it was awarding preliminary relief just to make sure that the agency would be open and continue to operate under congressional law. But because the court departed from that goal, we've repeatedly explained it's going to remain open. So we don't need her injunction to keep it open. We've already said we have a single, look, it's open. We have a single toll-free telephone number. We have a website. We have a consumer complaint database. And we're collecting everything under the law. There's like one Google form on their website somewhere. They're like, here, submit your form there. It's the statute has been complied with. Great. Now, at a minimum, Court of Appeals, you should at least enter a partial stay. They're reaching far beyond what is necessary to effectuate the harms that they're claiming. Like, we're going to die if you don't step in. Like, no, you're not. There's no harms here. There's no remedy that needs to be passed along. And so, in conclusion, the Trump DOJ says, look, Court of Appeals out of DC, please enter a stay. Stop us from having to rehire all of these fired people and bring them back into a government agency that is being whittled down. It's not being closed, but it is being shrunken up. And of course, she does not want that to happen. So we're going to keep our eye on that one. We'll see what the Court of Appeals says and what they order in response. But meanwhile, here was Newt Gingrich. He posted this. He says, these judges are just nuts. Says, according to a new poll, says Newt, 81% of Americans believe the federal government is corrupt. Yeah. Lawless left-wing judges are a direct threat to our system of self-government, and the House and the Senate have an obligation to rein them in. Here was Newt on with Mark Levin.
America's New Majority Project, we just did a poll last week. 81% of the American people believe the federal government's corrupt. 81%. This is an enormous danger to the survival of freedom when you have 8 out of every 10 Americans believing that the core system is corrupt. The House and the Senate have an obligation to bring these judges in, to interrogate them, to understand the normal constitutional boundaries, to look at the historic precedent, and then, if necessary, just abolish their courts and cut them out of the game, or cease paying for them, so that they just sit there and they can't do anything. The current situation is intolerable, and it is a direct threat to the system of self-government that is at the core of the American model.
All right, so Newt Gingrich there explaining all things that are true. And of course, we're talking about good judges. And here was a nice little stinger that came out on behalf of Team Brad Schimel, who is running to be elected in Wisconsin.
I'm asking that everyone get out and vote for a wonderful American patriot, a tough on crime judge, Brad Schimel. He stands for fair and impartial justice and will always back the blue. If you support law and order in Wisconsin, Brad Schimel is the one to do it.
All right, so get out. Don't be bad and vote for Brad. If you're there in Wisconsin, Brad Schimel for the Supreme Court out there. We want good judges, not partisan Democrat judges who just take every opportunity that's available to them to try to interfere with the executive branch and the American people. We're going to be here covering this case and more. Thanks for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now we're not done yet. Let's talk about the 14th Amendment, baby. Birthright, citizenship, and more coming up right now. We've got in the Supreme Court of the United States, we've got 20 states saying we are in agreement with President Trump and the American people. Birthright citizenship is not the law of the land, and it needs to be interpreted that Trump's executive order is valid. We want the Supreme Court to come set a nice rule for the entire country that trickles down to all of the other circuits and clears this up once and for all. The 14th Amendment and the subject to the jurisdiction thereof clause does not give illegal aliens who entered the country and violated our sovereign law from a foreign nation, meaning that they're not subject to our laws or to our jurisdiction because they're breaking our jurisdiction. They do not get to have children who are automatic citizens. This is the case at the Supreme Court of the United States. You see Iowa, 19 other states here submitting their amicus brief, and John Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, has ordered responses by the end of this week. So we're keeping our eye on this one. But here is what 20 states are saying in support of President Trump. The brief of Iowa and 19 other states coming in as friends of the court to support President Trump in the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Here is what we see submitted to SCOTUS from all of these amazing states. They write, all right, listen, the Attorney General of Iowa, and on behalf of 19 other states, is now here in the Supreme Court saying New Jersey and Washington have the same standing under the law as Texas. And remember, many of these states are suing Trump. So he was originally sued by CASA, which is I think, nonprofit, also sued by Washington. Trump was also sued by New Jersey. So these are the states responding as amicus, friends of the court. They say, we've got standing just like they have standing. And so if you're going to say that they have standing, then you should apply it to us. Courts have before rejected states seeking nationwide injunctive relief in immigration cases, right? So why should this one order that came down in New Jersey or came down in Washington, why should one judge be able to issue a nationwide blanket injunction? And in this case, plaintiffs like CASA, they have even worse claims to nationwide injunctions. If this court is going to reconsider this, then this is not the right place to do this. This court, write the states, should consider the balance of the equities here when you're deciding what is happening. What injury, in fact, is suffered in Washington state, from the executive order, which bans birthright citizenship, being allowed to go into effect while this case is being litigated? It's in Iowa. So what's the harm to Washington if we can litigate this in Iowa and there is not a stay on birthright citizenship? Okay, nationwide scope for this should be more limited. Indeed, Supreme Court, say the states, even outside the state-specific context, many members of this court have expressed discomfort with the effects of an improperly granted nationwide relief. The U.S. comes to the Supreme Court in this emergency posture due to a crisis caused by nationwide injunctions entered without reasonable bases. Talking to you, John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett. Here, despite tens of states opposing the injunctive relief that was sought below, nationwide relief is enjoined. We're enforced. Okay. In other words, Trump came out, said birthright citizenship is banned. Okay. He got elected. He's the president. Liberals go cry harder. Now, they don't like that. So what they have done is issued a nationwide injunction. Trump says, by the way, birthright citizenship is now banned. The 14th Amendment is going to be properly interpreted as it always should have been, but has not. It was before it came into fruition, but subject to the jurisdiction always meant you were subject to the United States completely. You were not beholden to some foreign power and in violation of our jurisdiction. If you subject yourself to our jurisdiction, that means you're not breaking the laws. If you're breaking the laws, you're actively refuting our jurisdiction. That's what illegal entry is. And then they try to say, well, it's asylum. Okay, whatever. So the presidential policy in those states is now being usurped. Arizona went red. Okay, we don't want birthright citizenship. Texas, the rest of them. Okay, all 7 swing states don't want it. And guess what? they're shoving it down our gullets anyways. They're saying that's ridiculous. We're being deprived of our rights. Ultimately, writes the states, one consideration in granting Trump's modest request for a partial stay is irreparable harm, okay? Now, the states contend, the other states, the blue states, contend that irreparable harm exists, but the red states don't see any harm at all. What harm? Now, beyond that, the blue states can't show that they're going to win on the merits anyways. This case is not about whether birthright citizenship is guaranteed under our Constitution. It is, but instead, the proper framing of this case asks where the limits of birthright citizenship end. Everyone agrees that a child born to American parents in the United States is a U.S. citizen at birth. Everyone agrees that a child born to Canadian parents in Canada is not, okay? But the challenged executive order asserts that some children, like children born to non-citizen parents who are illegally in the United States, are not automatically, under the Constitution, citizens. And nothing in the Supreme Court case, writing this to the Supreme Court in Wong Kim Ark, that you guys, the Supreme Court, decided back in the 1800s, nothing mandates that a child be automatically bestowed citizenship if they are. Okay, and in the Wong Kim Ark case, remember, these were Chinese immigrants who had lawful permanent residency in the United States, and they had a baby. They were in the country legally. And both history and this court's jurisprudence reflect that reality. Now, instead, Trump's executive order accepts birthright citizenship as the default and just asks to whom the citizenship attaches. Indeed, all parties agree that under an original understanding of both the Constitution and the 14th, birthright citizenship does not need to extend to every child born on American soil. The executive order from Trump exactly reflects that text, that history, and that tradition, which is it does not guarantee birthright to illegal aliens. Just from the founding, America's greatest virtue has been its citizenry. That's why we get so mad. We love this country and we cherish our citizenship and our Bill of Rights and our codification of our natural rights. And so when our elected leaders crap in our country by opening up our borders and diluting and ransacking the common nation that we're all trying to build here, it's very offensive to all of us. A citizenry united both by ideas and common cause. The Constitution never required every person who happened to be born on the United States soil to be a citizen. Our founders weren't morons. Nor is that the original meaning of the 14th Amendment or subject to the jurisdiction thereof. In fact, Alexander Hamilton even recognized the United States was poised to answer this question: whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend on their political constitutions on accident and force. Federalist number 1 from Hamilton. Now, accident and force is an apt way to describe birth tourism. It's not an accident. A lot of it's intentional. Schemes to have children in the United States costing enormous sums of money by tourists with no allegiance to the United States at all. Or to describe aspects of the invading flood of people across our border, coordinated at least by vicious cartels to hide their human and drug trafficking efforts. Now, for the past 4 years, disastrous immigration policies transformed every state in our country into a border state, whether you like it or not. Flooded every state. Even New York City is a border state now, right? Including criminals convicted of crimes in their home country, violent gangbangers that the ACLU loves, and suspected Islamic State terrorists flooding around our country, thanks to Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer. Illegal immigration imposes significant costs on the states and their people. And creating incentives for illegal immigration poses and puts lives at risk, allowing anyone born on American soil to claim American citizenship creates incentives for illegal immigration, and it exacerbates the state's costs. Now, the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause says all persons born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. On his first day in office, Trump issued an executive order. It instructed federal officials, do not give citizenship documents and do not accept documents from state or other governments who say that these people are citizens, unless they came from lawful permanent residents, just like in the Supreme Court case called Wong Kim Ark. Now, removing this incentive is critical. It's going to reduce illegal immigration. We spend a lot of time and money on births by illegal aliens, and the states have had they say, first of all, President Trump's executive order complies with the 14th Amendment. In fact, the Constitution has long required extending citizenship to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And that means a lot more than just being merely born in the United States, like it's just geography. You just happen to plop a baby out in this physical land, and that's good enough. Such a meaning would not only be superfluous if we don't give it more meaning than that, but it ignores the history around that phrase. In fact, there are categories of individuals who are exempt from birthright citizenship, says the states, and categories that were exempt without further congressional action. So the question for the Supreme Court now is whether the Constitution requires that lawbreakers and sojourners that enter this country illegally or lie to immigration officials are guaranteed to have U.S. citizen children. A tremendous gift. As long as you can get into the house, you can eat anything in the refrigerator. As long as you can get in, then you're good. And your kids too, they're good too. Says this court, in accord with the Supreme Court precedents, says the answer should be no. That's not how this works. In fact, birthright citizenship, they tell the Supreme Court, 20 states, for people who enter the country illegally creates perverse incentives. And in fact, it costs the states huge sums of money. The number of births to illegal immigrants and the cost of those alone is enormous, as is the value of U.S. citizenship. It's a ton of money. In fact, such as enticing reward compels people to try to come in here and creates a flood of bad actors trying to manipulate our borders for their nefarious ends. And so here's the story. Supreme Court, Trump's order is lawful. Now, these other blue states, they claim that their interpretation of the citizenship clause is a bright line and nearly universal rule. They say everybody is continuously and unanimously approved. They say it's birthright for everybody except like diplomats. Like that's it. Diplomats are just like a technicality, so it doesn't apply. That's wrong. Now, despite their assertion that we're trying to overturn 150 years of consensus, it's not true at all. In fact, Trump's executive order is in alignment with the original meaning of the 14th Amendment. They're wrong about their interpretation. They say, oh no, it's birthrights everywhere. It's universal and it's unanimous and so on. But last month in a criminal case, a federal judge in the Eastern District of Virginia in January said, well, it is a very unsettled term, subject to the jurisdiction. What does that even mean? He wrote in his opinion in Virginia, a federal judge said, I don't really know what it means. Says, it's a hotly contested question. Yeah, they say, of course it is. Indeed, many scholars who've studied the 14th Amendment have reached the same interpretation. After reviewing the text in the 14th and other things, one other scholar said, non-immigrant and illegal aliens, however, are not similarly considered part of the American people. They are not subject to the complete jurisdiction of the United States. And therefore, they're not entitled to birthright citizenship. Law Review article from Texas. Now, another scholar reached a similar conclusion. This guy called Richard Epstein, not that one, says another scholar reached a similar conclusion. So this has come up a lot. As illegality is, if anything, a more serious offense, there's no reason to think that breaking the law would then suddenly construe citizenship to your progeny. Ridiculous. A third scholar also wrote about it. He said, Supreme Court, check this out. You're going to like this one. Washburn, Law Review Journal, says, if one follows the intent of the 1866 Civil Rights Act, there is strong constitutional argument that children of illegal immigrants be excluded because the parents have not personally subjected themselves to the jurisdiction of the United States because they broke the law and have not acquired the requisite temporary or local allegiance by complying with the immigration laws. They're literally flouting the laws. Therefore, they've not maintained a lawful residence or a domicile. So kids, not citizens. Nor are those the only authorities on this either. According to Judge Richard Posner of the Seventh Circuit, he wrote this: the citizenship clause that these other people advanced in this case from 2003 makes no sense. He also doubted that a constitutional amendment was necessary to prevent birth automatically in this country from conferring citizenship. You don't need an amendment for that. It says it right there. Said we should not be encouraging foreigners to come to the U.S. solely to enable them to give citizenship to their kids. But that's what they want. That's what the left wants, because these people, they want to vote for them. Now, the 14th Amendment and its original interpretation is shown from the beginning. Says, start with the Citizenship Clause's full text. It says very clearly, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state in which they reside. Thus, to become a citizen, you got to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It has meaning. Now, the blue states think that it means that you just must comply with U.S. law. Now, even if that's true, like they're not complying with U.S. law. But then they carve out like this asylum thing. They're like, are you in danger? Do you fear for your life in your home country? They're like, oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm under attack from Maduro or something. Okay, great. Come on in here. Plaintiffs say that the only individuals excluded are those who are not in fact subject to the United States at birth, which are diplomats, right? They're not complying with the U.S. law. But plaintiffs and their interpretation brings two problems. First, when the 14th Amendment was passed, the legal fiction of extraterritoriality meant that diplomats were not an inhabitant of the country to which he is accredited, but of the country of his origin, where the parents came from. Okay, kid gets connected to the parent. Thus, the children of foreign diplomats were not born in the United States. They were born to that diplomat, and they were not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Then we have the Native Americans. They're both born in the U.S. and must comply with U.S. law. But under the Citizenship Clause interpretation, Native Americans should have American citizenship at birth under the 14th Amendment. But as they even admit, these blue states, the original understanding for purposes of the 14th Amendment was that children born to Native Americans are not subject to the United States. In other words, the 14th was for the slaves and was for the Civil War, not for Native Americans. Now, accordingly, ensuring that Native Americans were citizens required a separate statute later, 8 U.S. Code 1401B, and was not part of the 14th Amendment. So because even though they're born physically within the borders of the United States for that period of time, they were not citizens. Because the Citizenship Clause of the 14th does not apply to Native Americans, their interpretation cannot be correct, right? So it's not as broad as only applying to diplomats. It excluded the Native Americans. They had allegiances to their native tribes and their homeland. Adopting plaintiff's interpretation, then if we say, well, the 14th Amendment just means if we could punish you, then that means you're subject to our jurisdiction, which is not how it was interpreted at all. It's a perversion for their own benefit. Another important case to understand, which the founders would have viewed and used, is the Calvin's case. Talks about allegiance. A child born to an invading army is not a natural born subject. You get invaded and then they drop a baby here, like, well, I guess you're one of us now. What? To use Lord Coke's phrasing, the child is not under the allegiance of a subject, nor under the protection of the king, and going all the way back to the English. This is ridiculous. We're not even taking those kids either. Now, the Supreme Court's interpretation supports our claim. The earliest discussion of the Citizenship Clause excluded children born to individuals who were not lawfully and permanently in the United States. In fact, just 6 years after ratification, the court explained that the phrase subject to its jurisdiction was intended to exclude from its operation children of ministers, consuls, citizens of or subjects of foreign states, and more, the slaughterhouse cases. Now, though dicta, the opinion and interpretation excludes birthright citizenship when neither parent is a lawful permanent resident. So, the Supreme Court continued. Then they had a decision examining Native Americans, Elk versus Wilkins. According to the Supreme Court, the evident meaning of the subject to the jurisdiction thereof phrase was not merely subject in some respects, but complete Okay, complete, direct, and immediate allegiance. And if you're an illegal, that means you have come to the country and subjected yourselves to our laws, not openly violated them. The executive order follows the path charted by Trump's. It does not recognize citizenship if neither parent is lawful or a permanent resident, lawful and permanent. Because at the time of their child's birth, illegal aliens and birth tourists are members of an independent political community and owe allegiance to their home countries. And under Supreme Court precedent in Elk, it doesn't confer citizenship. So they say this, listen, consider this hypothetical, Supreme Court. Just play this game in your mind. Consider a not too distant hypothetical in which America's enemies landed from a submarine in the hours of darkness and upon landing buried their uniforms and then proceeded in civilian dress to New York City. Now imagine if one had brought a pregnant wife along for the journey, then gave birth on American soil. While all parties agree about enemy combatants, this type of infiltration is categorically different. Granting citizenship to such a plainclothes saboteur's child stresses, subject to the jurisdiction beyond the breaking point, right? And this is where you take one variable in a case and you just pull it like on a guitar string until it breaks. Oh, how'd that sound? Does that sound like a good interpretation of your rule there? Okay, so under their rule, they'd say, oh yeah, totally, that child's a citizen. Sorry, it's going to be unusual. It's a hypothetical, would never happen, blah, blah, blah. It's happening every day. We're getting invaded by people who are dropping babies here. Those illegal entrants to our country cannot have been guaranteed birthright citizenship, and such an interpretation of the 14th Amendment is absurd. And this is not an absurd hypothetical. It's happening every day. They're just not coming over in submarines. Similar strong arguments support the concept that birthright citizenship does not follow from an invading force. Josh Blackman talked about it. Said, in this case, here now, Trump has explicitly declared an invasion. And the blue states are high on other Supreme Court precedents. They say that the Wong Kim Ark case confirmed that the 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship to the children of immigrants born in the United States. Yeah, but they emphasize multiple times mom and dad back then from China were lawful permanent residents. They were not going back to China. Even its holding stressed the importance of lawful residents. So as long as they are permitted to reside here, Wong Kim says they're good. You're allowed to be here. You've subjected yourself to the jurisdiction. Your kid is here. Now, Wong Kim did not address children born to illegals or birth tourists because the parents in that case were lawful, other than to note that their citizenship is an open question. So for the people on the left to pervert Wong Kim Ark, that Supreme Court case, and say it settles this is ridiculous, obviously. Another useful contrast can be found where the Supreme Court recognized that a minor daughter living in the U.S. for 9 years did not automatically become a citizen when her dad was naturalized because she was in the country illegally. The court cautioned that naturalization of parents affects minor children only if dwelling in the United States. Like they got to be here. That just because she's overseas or something doesn't mean she's automatically a citizen with dad. Despite living in the United States for close to a decade, for purposes of jurisdiction, she was at the boundary line and had gained no foothold in the United States. And that holds true today. So not being born, but just living, right? Also. Now the Supreme Court, so in other words, the precedent is not strongly in favor of granting citizenship until recently. The Supreme Court's earliest decisions established that the citizenship clause did not confer citizenship to children born to individuals who were not lawfully and permanently in the country. Wong Kim, that case, not any different. And so accordingly, this court should find that Trump's executive order is consistent within the meaning of the 14th Amendment, and these blue states are not going to win. You can go all the way back. In fact, back during the 14th Amendment's creation, even Cooley said, a citizen by birth must not only be born here, but he also must be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That means mom and dad too. The approach was also reflected in contemporaneous practice, history lesson. In 1873, Attorney General under Grant interpreted jurisdiction, explained that jurisdiction must be understood to mean absolute or complete jurisdiction. Aliens, among whom are persons born here and naturalized abroad, might only be subject in a limited extent. Political and military rights do not pertain to them. So if you have any allegiances to any other home country and you're not subjecting yourself here, it's not enough. Another example from another 17th, 18th century case. And so we cannot ignore this. There's been a misunderstanding that they are trying to pervert upon us, and we can't allow that to happen, Supreme Court. So the states continue. They say, all right, Supreme Court, look, besides being just wrong, the blue states, their citizenship clause interpretation will continue to attract illegal immigration and birth tourism. If we allow people to just come here and plop babies out, there's going to be a lot more. In fact, this guy, James Wilson, recognized this while drafting the 14th Amendment. He said, this is not to establish any new rights, but we're going to protect and enforce those which belong to every citizen. The costs surrounding these foreign births impact the states in several ways, and Trump's order is going to reduce this. The lure of American citizenship motivates pregnant women to travel here to give birth. Happens all the time, birth tourism. Pregnant illegal aliens admit their belief that American citizenship would guarantee that their child has health care and other vital benefits. I thought they had socialized medicine over there. Why do they need to come here for our care? Some women desperate to give birth in the U.S. cross the border the day they deliver their baby. One border hospital administrator witnessed this, said, mothers about to give birth that walk up to the hospital still wet from swimming across the river in actual labor are dirty, wet, and cold. Some women give birth at the border just minutes after crossing. Attracting this imposes significant costs on the states. For example, between 225,000 and 250,000 U.S. births in 2023, about 7% of all births in the U.S., and more than births in any state besides Texas or California, were to illegal immigrants. Can you believe that number? Right? This is where you hear the great replacement theory and all these things. 7% of all births and more than births in any state besides Texas or California were to illegals. All citizens under the current interpretation, U.S. citizens. So you get to break and enter, and then you get to just clean out the whole fridge and just drop whatever you want in the country. It's amazing. In Texas and Georgia, no babies illegal, Rob. Yeah, they are. In Texas and Georgia, 3/4 of births to illegal immigrants were likely paid for by taxpayers, and we're paying for it too. In total, the states pay an estimated almost $1 billion, $938 million in Medicaid costs for illegal babies. States bear many costs associated with births, according to illegal aliens as well. Texas estimates that its perinatal coverage for illegals is $30 to $38 million. They could go to your kids and their schools and your roads and your safe streets, but they don't. They go to illegal invaders' babies. Isn't that fun? Until now. We'll see what the Supreme Court does. And because the mother and any other family members accompanying the new baby often stay, the states end up paying for their health care as well. Texas says its people pay as much as $700 million, almost $1 billion a year, for illegal aliens and their babies, and $90 million for Medicaid. Over the course of their lives, each illegal immigrant in this country is a lifetime cost of 68 G's. Nice. Testimony of this other person. And that does not include the cost of every extra crime committed, not to mention the crime that they committed when they came in the first place, by an illegal immigrant. Some of those crimes have elicited national outrage and bipartisan response. Some of those responses have been muted, like by Judge Boasberg, who loves Tren de Aragua, and the ACLU gangbanger lawyers who are representing them for probably free. The total cost to the states is enormous. When healthcare costs, public education costs, welfare costs, other state programs, and more, all estimated add up to $115 billion each year because of illegal immigration, which is, it's not for us. It's our country, and it's not for us at all. Says, and they'll lie to you about it. Well, your cost and service as a governor. Okay, give me a break. Says, that's fine. We want a country. We don't want a cheap economic zone flooded with illegal aliens and plastic crap from China. Because plaintiffs and their citizen clause interpretation increases illegal immigration, it increases the costs of this. They say babies born in America to illegal aliens also impose costs on the state throughout their lives. These babies likely would have to be born in a different country, would have been, but now they're here. But as American citizens, these children may, for example, participate in welfare programs, get state health care, get a driver's license. The state will incur costs for all of these things. And They're also incorrect in their interpretation because it encourages birth tourism. This is when rich, pregnant moms travel to the United States and drop their babies in our country. Birth tourism is booming, by the way. Some estimate that 20 to 26,000 foreign babies are dropped off here in our land. Some people paying up to 100 G's to do so. China and Russia sending most of them. Criminal activity has accompanied birth tourism as well. Federal prosecutors recently got conspiracy and money laundering convictions against 2 California residents who were thinking about doing this. Has harmed the states, Medicare bills, states had to pay outstanding medical bills, and more. 80 says here, babies that return to the United States as citizens may create costs and other things. And so the states have been and will continue to be harmed by the Citizenship Clause interpretation that these blue states are promulgating. They're not going to win this. The 14th Amendment says what it says. And so Supreme Court, you guys should do something about this. Recognize the improper scope of this injunction. Okay, if New Jersey or Washington wants to limit birthright citizenship or prohibit the limitation of birthright citizenship, let them do it in their states. But the red states and the rest of the country wants to do it. So let us get control of our country once again. So a nice filing in the Supreme Court, 20 states coming in there and making it known that we want the Supreme Court to act. Now, meanwhile, we've got deportations continuing. Afueras are happening at rapid speeds. 17 extremely dangerous criminals linked to Tren de Aragua have now been afuera to El Salvador. Here's what their president, Nayib Bukele, said. Last night, in a joint military operation with our allies from the United States, we transferred 17 extremely dangerous criminals linked to Tren de Aragua and MS-13. All individuals are confirmed to be very bad people, including those hurting kids. This operation is another step in the fight against terrorism and organized crime. And you can see we've got a little montage video here of those folks being taken out of America and dropped right into that prison called SCOTUS, from which it appears they will never emerge. So the progress continues in spite of these judges and in spite of the efforts by the left to have the deportations continue to occur. We also see we're hitting the drug cartels from the financial angle. Secretary Treasury Scott Bessent had the following to say, says, national security is economic security. Today, the U.S. Treasury Department loudly leveled new sanctions against financiers of the criminal Sinaloa drug cartel, which has flooded our borders with fentanyl and senselessly murdered innocent American citizens. This ends under President Trump's leadership. Here's Scott Bessent.
As President Trump and I have stressed many times before, economic security is national security. One of the most important roles we play at Treasury is safeguarding American interests against foreign adversaries. Today, I'm proud to announce that we've taken decisive action against the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most notoriously violent criminal and drug trafficking organizations in the world. Our administration is committed to cutting off their funding and neutralizing the threat through all available tools. We leveled sanctions against 6 individuals and 7 entities involved in a money laundering operation, cutting off financing for these evil people. Today, the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network also issued an alert to help financial institutions detect and deter bulk cash smuggling by transnational criminal organizations in Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel has invaded our southern border. They have tortured and murdered countless of our citizens, dedicated law enforcement agents like Kiki Camarena, and veterans like Nicholas Quetz, who was only 31 years old when he was ruthlessly taken from us. And the group is responsible for a significant amount of the fentanyl and illicit drugs brought into the United States. Drugs that continue to kill innocent Americans and destroy families every single day. Today's action builds on the great and coordinated work across the Trump administration, from the White House to DHS to the DOJ. we have a steady drumbeat of regulatory and sanctions actions, as well as national security actions, sending a clear message that American strength is back.
All right, Scott Bessent in the House, delivering a message. American strength is back. So all stops are pulled out, and the battle against the drug cartels continue as America regains her place on this continent. Now, here is Karoline Leavitt, who got asked about these Tren de Aragua judges today outside the White House.
Any exemptions for farmers being considered for these tariffs?
No exemptions at this time.
Caroline. The validation guide that DHS is using to determine who is an enemy alien, a Tren de Aragua member, and deportable under the Enemy Aliens Act, it has criteria here that require 8 points to be classified as a TDA member. You can get classified by simply having certain symbols in your tattoos and wearing certain streetwear brands. That alone is enough to get someone classified as TDA and sent to El Salvador.
That's not true, actually, Andrew.
According to this document, it is.
No, according to the Department of Homeland Security and the agents, have you talked to the agents who have been putting their lives on the line to detain these foreign terrorists who have been terrorizing our communities? TDA is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women. And our agents on the front lines take deporting these people with the utmost seriousness, and there is a litany of criteria that they use to ensure that these individuals qualify as foreign terrorists and to ensure that they qualify for deportation. And the president made it incredibly clear to the American public that there would be a mass deportation campaign of not just foreign terrorists, but also illegal criminal aliens who have been wreaking havoc on American communities. And shame on you and shame on the mainstream media for trying to cover for these individuals who have. This is a vicious gang, Andrew. This is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women.
The government filed in court, which says all.
And you said yourself there are 8 criteria on that document.
They need 8 points.
And you are questioning the credibility of these agents who are putting their life on the line to protect your life and the life of everybody in this group and everybody across the country. And their credibility should be questioned. They finally have a president who is allowing them to do their jobs, and God bless them for doing it.
Karoline Leavitt. Letting that reporter have it. You should be ashamed of yourself, sir. How dare you defend Tren de Aragua? We're trying to save women in America, and the ACLU gangbang lawyers in the blue states just want more of it happening in their own country. It's really a bizarre ideology. Don't they want safer streets? Why do they want more gangbangers in our country? Don't turn around and lecture us about due process either, liberals. Don't want to hear about, like, oh, I thought the Constitution, this, that, and the other. No. You gave, and you want more due process for Tren de Aragua gangbangers than you did for J6ers, parents who showed up to school board meetings, or the pro-lifers. So don't turn around and lecture us. We saw what you did these last 4 years. So Karoline Leavitt telling them, you should be ashamed of yourselves. We know what you're here for. Stop doing it. We're going to keep our eye on this case. Waiting for SCOTUS to give us some answers. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now, we got one final update on the day, my friends. And this is a fun one. Liberal lawyers are now abandoning their friends. Trump has come out with executive order after EO and hitting law firm after law firm, many of them big, super Democrat lib lawyers. And they were sending letters to each other, trying to rally the troops. Support us. Don't let Trump take us out. But now there's a fissure. They're not helping each other. Financial Times is reporting saying top U.S. law firms balk at backing Perkins Coie's challenge to Trump's sanctions. Some law firms have been making deals here. We've been covering them. Others are suing. Perkins Coie, of course, was one of the law firms that represented Hillary Clinton and worked with Fusion GPS, Michael Sussman, Mark Elias, created the entire Russiagate scandal and collusion hoax starting back in 2016. They were going to their friends, please help us. And now their friends don't want to. None of the top 20 law firms in the U.S. so far have offered their unconditional support to Perkins Coie. Fair weather friends, where'd they go? Organizers of an amicus brief in support of Perkins' lawsuit, right? Like, we're joined by 25 top law firms. Like, no. You're on your own. You guys, we didn't do that crap. We didn't work with Mark Elias. You did. They're struggling to convince America's most powerful law firms to sign up amid concerns that they're also going to face retaliation by Trump. This isn't retaliation. These people tried to attack Trump. They tried to commandeer the federal government to do that. They were offering and providing pro bono services to Jack Smith for whatever reason, who's illegitimate. And we're trying to take out Trump, kick him off the ballot. A lot of the stuff organized by the same groups we see here today, like Crew and many others, American Oversight, Norm Eisen's Love Children. All of these things are involved in the criminal attempts against Trump. He's got no obligations to work with them at all. So now they're ending their contracts. It's not retaliation, okay? Don't attack him. And he wouldn't have done this. In fact, he's not doing it to many law firms who didn't attack him. Eric Green, a well-known mediator, has been circulating a draft of the brief and tallying the daily numbers of those law firms willing to add their names to the document. Okay, the brief is being prepared by some crap law firm in LA called Munger, Tolles, and Olson. All right. So they're like, we're going to fight this. We're going to organize a 51 ladder of CIA morons. According to an email sent on Saturday afternoon by Green's firm, it's called Resolutions LLC, which was seen by the Financial Times, 173 of 248 law firms have responded to the survey are offering unconditional support. Those are pretty good numbers, actually. 173 out of 248. That's pretty good. However, among the top 100 law firms by revenue, as ranked by the American Lawyer, only 3 have offered unconditional support, with none coming from the top 20. All right. So it's all like, it's like George Conway. George Conway's like, my law firm's going to stand behind you. He's like, yeah. Okay, George, no one cares. Says, so we're looking for the big firms. Okay, none of them offering support. None coming from the top 20. That's what you want. The brief is supposed to be submitted to the court in the next few days in conjunction with the formal filings, but not looking good. 8 firms in the top 100 have offered their support with conditions, including that their closest peers also sign on to the brief. They're like, well, are these people going to sign? Who else is signing it? Is he signing it? Is he signing it? According to one person involved. As such, nearly all of the full-throated support so far for the amicus brief originates from small and medium-sized firms like George Conway. And shout out to the small firms. Yeah, I mean, they're amazing. But says, so the numbers are great, but not from the large firms, wrote Green. According to Trump's order, Perkins would be banned from the federal government. A federal judge in Washington issued an injunction. Since Perkins Coie, Trump has hit 2 other law firms that we've talked about here. Paul Weiss cut a deal, $40 million in pro bono. Skadden said they're going to give another $100 million in pro bono. Wilmer Harrell, Jenner Block have both sued. Perkins Coie and Eric Green, the mediator, did not respond to requests, but the 3-page draft says, like every lawyer, the members of the amicus have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. Whatever. All right. Well, why'd Mark Elias and Michael Sussman, in conjunction with Christopher Steele and the Fusion GPS folks, and with tacit approval from the Perkins Coie partners, try to take out President Trump? Okay, where is that in the oath? Democracy or something like that? Okay, you guys made it up. All right, so now they're all abandoning ship. Fair weather friends, as you could expect. But they did have this victory, so this is temporary and fleeting. Can't wait until we get some clarity from the courts of appeals on why Trump can cancel these contracts. And again, these are just artful pleadings. They take their contract cancellation, it's just a canceled contract, and they turn it into something else, right? It's like they turn into a marriage or something. You're like, I was just here to cut your grass. You're like, I can't believe, and you're leaving now? I can't believe you're divorcing me. You're like, I'm your lawn guy. Okay, just relax. Our relationship's over. It's very temporary. We're not in this forever. Okay? Wilmer, you're fired. You're not entitled to eternal matrimony with the federal government. Okay, goodbye. But they sue. They say, our rights are, and they're entitled to alimony for the next 100,000 years. They say this matter comes before the court. This is a district court judge, and this judge is going to find in favor of them. It's a short order. Richard J. Leon says, all right, Wilmer is going to win. I will grant in part and deny in part their TRO. So Wilmer says, how dare you, President Trump, cut off our contract, bring them back. This judge is basically saying it's coming back. Says, as to these various factors, he gives us an analysis, and he says, so in conclusion, parts of the order are enjoined, parts of the order are allowed, and so we'll see what they do in the aftermath of that. Doesn't give us a lot of clarity on what is what. We saw a very similar order from Beryl Howell, right? Like certain things having to do with buildings and whatever, but part of the agreements will continue, part of the agreements will end, and people are quitting at these law firms. They're throwing temper tantrums. So here, another person from Skadden quits. Skadden was one of the firms that entered into a settlement with Trump. The first lawyer we read here was Rachel Coie. Remember, she wrote that like ranty screed. I can't believe you're settling. Went absolutely mad and banana nuts. She left. One of her demands was to support Perkins. Then after Skadden reached an agreement, a second associate announced that she was resigning on LinkedIn too. It's like, what do they say? It's not Southwest. You don't have to announce your departure. Okay, just quit. The associate is called Brenna Trout, criticized executive partner Jeremy London for capitulating to Trump's demand. She says, he's for fealty and protection money. This is a craven attempt to sacrifice the rule of law for self-preservation. It's fun to watch these people just whine. I know there are people still at the firm who can't leave for whatever reason, financial, needing to pay back law school loans, the breadwinner for their family, so like they're all victims. I knew that those people can't speak out, so because I was able to, I felt it important to make that public. All right, so she's going to go drop a little screed over there. We're asking, what is Congress going to do about these hack lawyers asking for these nationwide injunctions? What are these judges going to do? Can they step in and do anything? Well, look who wrote this one. Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, said, how about we have a bill to stop nationwide injunctions? Chuck Grassley wrote this in an op-ed, says, this month, NBC's poll finds more registered voters believe our country's on the right track than at any other time in the past 2 decades. But right now, amid Trump's executive actions, federal judges have increasingly and inappropriately inserted themselves into national policy debates. Now, these nationwide injunctions have obstructed. More than 2/3 of all injunctions issued over the past 24 years have been hit against Trump, the first administration. And in the past 2 months alone, judges have issued 15 injunctions against Trump, surpassing the 14 that Biden faced throughout his entire term. Now, scholars can find no clear record of universal injunctions before 1963. All right, and this is the point that I think has some overlap with the issue that we've seen here come up again about foreign judges coming in and issuing nationwide TROs. And then the response is, well, how come we don't have a birthright or a natural born citizenship clause for judges? Like, why don't we have that? We have that for the president. Why not for judges? And I think in part it's because you want the judges to reflect the actual jurisdiction, the geography of where they are. And so some, I think the founders probably thought this through and thought, well, some people may want natural born citizens from their local demographics and their local communities to be judges. And that's fine. But they never contemplated a nationwide injunction, which would be akin to the power of the president, which I think would be more analogous as to why we should have a natural born requirement for federal judges. And if they're going to keep doing that, I think we might need to have a constitutional amendment to modify those conditions. But anyways, they wrote this. No practice of this until 1963. Right? Now, the practice has become common only in the past few decades. It can have serious consequences for the taxpayer. A Biden-appointed judge in D.C. issued a TRO against USAID. That was Amir Ali, born in Canada. TROs were supposed to maintain the status quo, but Judge Amir from Ontario said $2 billion needs to go out the door. Totally ridiculous. These decisions also place undue stress on the judicial system, says Grassley. Political and fiscal implications aside, district court judges and their abuse of discretion and TROs is unconstitutional. And so the obvious solution is this. If the Supreme Court won't act, Congress must. Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution authorizes Congress to create and organize the federal courts. On Monday today, Grassley says, I will introduce the Judicial Relief Clarification Act to restore the constitutional role of the lower courts by restraining their ability to issue universal injunctions. Under my bill, says Grassley, lower courts like Chutkan and Amir Ali and Amy Berman Jackson and the rest of them, lower courts could no longer block legitimate executive actions by issuing orders to non-parties to the lawsuit. Okay, so only Boasberg, for example, could only issue an order to stop the deportation of JGG and the 5 people who were party to that lawsuit, but not issue a blanket that hits the whole nation. The bill would also make TROs against the government immediately appealable to SCOTUS to make sure that prudence wins over the rash decisions handed out by these political hacks, says Grassley from Iowa. I hope lawmakers on both sides of the aisle will join me in moving it forward. Not only Republicans have been alarmed by the far-reaching consequences of these judges, 240 Democratic lawmakers, including Schumer and Durbin in 2023, said there are perilous consequences if a district judge blocks mifepristone, okay? And Elena Kagan has said the same thing. Can't have this. Republicans and Democrats alike, says Grassley, including me, have cheered or criticized the policy implications of universal injunctions, but that approach inappropriately politicizes the federal court system and disrupts the balance of power. Congress ought to put a stop to it for good. He's right. I hope Congress takes that advice and does something with it. Now, we had Jim Jordan, who, of course, is in Congress. He was also on with Mark Levin. And here's what Jim had to say about this. As soon as we refresh this button here, and we can hear from Jim.
Injunction that applies nationwide. So we got legislation. We'll look at the appropriations process. I think it's the main power we have in the legislative branch to deal with the other branches of government. We'll look at that. And then finally, we're going to do oversight, which is one of our other responsibilities. And we'll start that with the hearing next week with some experts who will come in and talk about this issue and what has disproportionately happened with these left-wing activist judges going after President Trump.
There's also this over
the people and the people who put their name on the ballot who we elect, or the experts, the unelected judges, or worse yet, the unelected bureaucrats who the left always seems to want to empower, like the Faucis of the world who ran our life, ran our country for 4 stinking years during the Biden administration. So, yeah, this is the fundamental question. It's the people. 77 million of them voted for the guy who put his name on a ballot, went out and ran, told us he was going to secure the border and do the things he's doing, and that you have a judge in Timbuktu, California, who can do some order or some injunction and stop that. That is not how our system's supposed to work. And this is so important, so important. It's we the people, and the people that we elect who make the decisions.
And Jim Jordan explaining what I think many Americans are feeling. We would like our say to have some weight. We voted for the president. We did not vote for these judges. These judges were installed by Obama and Biden, many of them not from the United States at all. 1/3 of them in DC are not from the United States, which is a pretty sick thing to think about. And if you think about it that way, there are 5 foreign countries that have more influence, more representation on the DC District Court than any swing state in America, just to be clear on that. And I looked it up. There's nobody on the DC District Court judge who's from Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, South Carolina. Nobody there. Nobody from Georgia. Nobody from Pennsylvania on that court. But there are people on DC who are from Trinidad and Tobago, who are from Jamaica, who are from Canada, who are from India. How is that an American court at all? Why don't we have, are there no good judges in Wisconsin who can be on that court? I think there are. I think there's a different reason why Joe Biden appointed 3 out of 5 judges from foreign countries in DC when he had the opportunity. Why are they doing that? We know why. All right. And so, my friends, if you're just joining us, let's do a quick recap. If you're just joining us, we had some good updates. We talked about this judge, Amy Berman Jackson. Of course, she has 2 cases. She's already lost one of those cases. Second case is going up on appeal right now. Trump submitted his brief in response to her ranty screed coming out of the DC circuit. Trump is asking for a stay, saying, don't make us hire all these CFBP people back. We're not going to want to shove them back into government, okay? Because we're going to win. We're going to take this up to the Supreme Court ultimately and be victorious. We also then talked about the Supreme Court. We had 20 states submitting an amicus brief as friends of the court into the Supreme Court. You can see the blue states were suing Trump. The red states have responded, 20 states, Iowa, and 19 others, saying birthright citizenship, as interpreted by Trump's executive order, is the lawful interpretation. And illegal immigrants, illegal aliens who are in this country who have babies here should not be granted citizenship for their children because they're not here subject to the jurisdiction. You don't get to break into someone's house and then enjoy a nice nap in their bed. Get out. We saw Nayib Bukele. We heard from Karoline Leavitt today. And then we saw that liberal lawyers are all abandoning ship, not even protecting their friends. They were all in this together. They all go to the same cocktail parties. They all watch Rachel Maddow and text each other. She was so witty tonight. I know. And they do that. And then when one of them gets into trouble, the rest of them are like, good luck, bro. And they're probably on their Zoom meetings and their MAGA hats now. So good for us, bad for them. We're here to enjoy it. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And it's been a beautiful Monday. Thank you for joining us, those of you who made it here today. Thank you for the donos. Thank you for the super chats and new membos. Welcome aboard. Thank you for becoming a membo. We had a great members only stream this morning, a great stream back on Saturday with our membo friends. And we'd love to have you become a membo. It's a great way to support the show, a great way to meet new friends out there and get some extra content. And we want to see you in the mornings and say what's up. So come and join us. Okay, let's see who's here today. What's going on? We got Donut is clipping for us. Thank you, Donut. Says, happy Monday. Let's do this. I feel like there should be like a song that comes on after that. What's up, ICATs? ISATs, what's up in the house? Thank you for becoming a membo, ISATs. We'll see you in the morning. Voice of the People, we saw this, says, hey, JFK files tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Voice of the People, off-label podcast. I'll be watching some hearings on off-label probably all day if anyone would like to join. Check them out, Voice of the People, right next door on the YouTubes. Nothing to worry about, guys. The A-team is on the job. Wow, who is at that table? I want to insert myself into that story and pretend like that's me, but I don't know if that's me or not. But that would be cool because I think that's JD and the president one day. I'll be like, are you guys arresting Liz Cheney yet? Is she getting arrested? That's okay. This is still cool. So that'd be fun. Thank you, Quad Cam. That's my quote there. My hands, I'm like, is she getting arrested right now? Amazing. Love you guys. Hey, Joby1 Kenobi says, if a diplomat's wife had a baby while legally in our country, the baby is not a U.S. citizen, but an illegal's baby is. Yeah, according to the blue states. That's how it works for them in their mind. That's totally logical and a perfect way to run the country. Leonard, what's up? The contrast between Trump's rapid, fluent answers and Brandon's stumbling, bumbling, and lies is shocking. Joe never did that. I don't think one time. Did he ever take extended questions in the Oval Office ever? I don't think so. Thank you, Leonard, for being a membo and for supporting us today. Hey, Economath says, sounds like America might need to liberate Europe again. Yeah, I don't know. Europe can liberate itself as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, they got it all figured out. I know we're so backwards and we're so unsophisticated or whatever. So good luck. They can enjoy their solar panels and their Russian language, whatever happens to them. Good luck to them. What's up, Economath? Brian Hinkle. Hey, thank you, Brian. Thank you for turning on closed captions. Thank you, Brian, for watching the closed captions and for reading them. Fred is here. Knox Bierman is absolutely the nicest person ever. Knox is pretty amazing. She's a defense attorney in Texas. I mean, you don't need to even know much about her, and she's already plus 10 in your points. So she's amazing. We love Knox. Fred, thank you for that. And shout out to Knox. We love you, Knox. Hey, Lenny's here. Like, share, and subscribe, my friends. Share on all social media platforms. And don't do it for me. Do it for Lenny. Okay, I know you don't care. I'm like, will you subscribe? Like, shut up, Rob. No. You're like, no, I'm not going to do it. But it's for Lenny. Lenny's the one who's asking, not me. I would like it, though. Ray, what's up? That vehicle is used to tow tanks. Great guys, that vehicle. From Ray Ronk. No doubt about it, Ray. Thank you for that. to tow tanks. Man, that sounds awesome. Hey, Michelle is here. Says, concerning the Signal, the department, probably the CIA, that approved Signal as secure knew darn well that app could access all contacts in a user's phone. This is an issue, but probably not because someone was being reckless. Yeah, Michelle, that's an interesting comment. And, I've seen more. The White House said today that this was closed. Karoline Leavitt came out and said, it's closed. It's done. We're not talking about this stuff anymore. Stop bringing it up. But Mike Waltz had that comment that, we still don't know the details. Somebody from his office added the person. Was the phone number changed? Like, did somebody change the actual contact's name, a Goldberg's number into another contact's name kind of a situation? It's curious. And the timing was very curious as well. And Signal, yeah, we had articles here. We read articles that said that the Biden administration was using them. So I think for certain things, it's valid. And then you transfer off of it for other things. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think it's a huge story. So thank you, Michelle, for the nice donut. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for being a membo. Hey, Philip B says, Stacey got $2 billion, $1 for every fat cell. Oh! Oh, it's true. It's funny because it's so true. It's true. You can see it. It's like, man, she did get $2 billion, didn't she? Hey, thank you for that, Philip Butler. Hey, Doan Burrell says CFBP was Obama's finger in the American pie. Ugh. Yeah, he did that a lot, didn't he? He did it. Thanks, Doan. Hey, SSG, Adam Juneman, what's up? Says the vehicle, hey, good to see you, sir. Says the vehicle those services members died in, an M88A2 Hercules. I was a driver, rigger with an R, track commander, instructor on, is very heavy. It's a 70-ton vehicle as it has the same weight as an M1 Abrams. Man, amazing. Adam Juneman in the house. Thank you, Adam, for your service. Yeah, Pyramid 7 saying the same. Yeah, good stuff. Interesting. Yeah, and rest in peace to those service members. What's up? Quadcam says, Grok had an interested idea for helping to address some judiciary issues. Enable Congress to override a specific judicial ruling with a supermajority vote within a set window. This isn't a constitutional amendment, but a statutory check, like the APA's review of agency actions applied to courts. Well, they can do that. They can just pass some legislation, right? So it would almost be like an advisory opinion from Congress. I don't know that I like that idea. If Congress doesn't like it, then they can just pass a statute. Congress has all the tools in the world to do something. They're just useless. So what would make them overrule a supermajority with a supermajority vote? Like nothing. They could already just pass legislation with simple majority, right? Just say, oh yeah, no, Tren de Aragua is codified as following, and here's your approval. Trump, go do it. With simple majority, they just won't. What's up? Adam Juneman says a little bit of background on the M88A2. Is it a recovery vehicle? And I was a Bradley mechanic, man. Lenny, thank you for your service, Adam. Yeah, good details on that. M88A2 recovery vehicle. Good stuff. Thank you, Adam. What's up? Chubby's here. Says, these activist judges have become so emboldened by the lack of SCOTUS intervention. I can only really hope that if and when SCOTUS decides to finally do their duty, they will do so with immense ridicule and chastisement at the severe insolence of these lower court judges. Great sentence. There should be aggressive chastisement at their insolence. I need to say insolence a lot more on this channel. Thank you for the reminder. Chubby, yeah, it's a great point. And I think that they will ultimately come down on it. I don't know that they're going to chastise them as much as they need to be chastised, but hopefully they do. Hey, Houston's here. Houston, we have a problem. Was this one of the guys that came back from space? Is that why his hair's so long? He was up there for so long? Hey, Lynn! Lynn Huston in the house. Hey, what's up, Lynn? Thank you, Lynn, for bringing in 5 membos. We got Nathan Haynes is here. Jackie Kennedy, welcome. Don Satterwhite, Sue Ellen, and Blue Bayou in the house, brought in courtesy of Huston. We have a problem. Thank you, Lynn, for that. Leonard is here, calling her Amy Bourbon Jackson. It's pretty funny. Yeah, almost like Howell, like Bourbon Howell, Barrel Howell kind of a thing. She was, I think, wind up. Doan Burrill says, is Amy Berman Jackson cooking up cases like Toe Jam Tish James. Yeah, Tish, remember she took her shoes off and stunk the whole courthouse up. Talk about a noxious odor. Then they had to evacuate Fannyland after her noxious odor. All right, Gloria B. One membo coming in. What's up, Gloria B? Thank you for bringing in Tyler Graff. What's up, Tyler? Welcome. Ms. J is here, 21 months as a membo. Thank you, Ms. J. Says, when 2020 is proved fraud, 47 should be given 4 more years from Ms. J. 21 months as a membo. Well, we're going to see if that conversation continues and where that one goes. It's going to be fun. Ms. J, thank you for that. Hey, Benjamin Lewis says, Rob, was the 14th actually ratified? I heard no. I think so. Unless you know something that I don't know. But we've been acting like it's been ratified for quite a while now. So I'm pretty sure it is. But I'm open to alternative interpretations on that. What's up, Lowell Skinner? What's up, Lowell? Says, hey, welcome, Lowell. Thanks for coming aboard and becoming a membo. Sheila Pooh says, love this pleading on natural-born citizenship. Yeah, it's good. It shows the real-world harms. It shows the legal incongruities, why they're wrong. And it just got perverted under, modern times. And Wong Kim Ark never said that it included illegals, ever. What's up, Cyrus Jalali? What's up, Cyrus? Says, many cases SCOTUS needs to hear, since they all relate to Trump's EO and all face national injunctions and or TROs, can't SCOTUS just hear it as one case? They wouldn't hear it as one case, but they could lay down a rule that touched all cases, for example. Like if they laid down a rule under, Grassley's interpretation and said, actually, TROs are acting like injunctions and there's historical precedent that when that happens, it's immediately appealable to us. And since it's a lower court that's basically binding a co-equal branch of government, we are the, logically, like you can deduce into this, we are the only one that can hear it. If there is a nationwide injunction, we can only hear it logically. So it makes it immediately appealable. And then if they did that, they would say, okay, well, now any TROs that, they set down a rule that impinges upon a core constitutional function of the executive branch is immediately appealable. So then the next time any TRO comes down against Trump, whether it's for trans with Reyes or Boasberg deportation or Jackson with employment, whatever, then they could say, oh, your TRO meets those standards under the Supreme Court rule and just bump it right up there immediately. But each case would still have to work its way through. You could just get to SCOTUS and get better review more quickly. Thank you, Cyrus. Great question. Hopefully they do that. James Anderson says, relax. Trump is just trying to build back better. I think that's true. Except in our version, we were in a cutting phase. We're going to be in a bulking phase soon. It's going to be glorious. What's up, James Anderson? Thanks for being a membo for 3 months, my friend, I appreciate it. Doan. Hey, thank you, Doan. Says, excellent coverage as always, Rob. Thank you, Doan, for that. And yeah, it was fun to jip into Trump at the beginning. Will Crump says, will SCOTUS let Article 2 burn to the ground? I don't think so. I think they're just being like the prudent adult in the room is how they think of themselves. Like, we're just going to let them fight it out. Then we'll deal with it when we're ready. That's all. Will Crump, thank you. James Anderson says, why is Liz Cheney still not indicted? That's a hell of a great question, James Anderson. Yeah. For her crimes against America when she was colluding with clavicle girl Cassidy to try to insurrect another election. Thank you, James. Good question. Joseph Markley. What's up, Joseph? Thank you for becoming a supporter. Welcome aboard. See you tomorrow on the members only stream in the morning, 12 noon Eastern. Lady L. What's up, Lady L? Says, glory hallucinating. I don't know if you're describing your current situation and how you're feeling, or if you're talking about one of these judges. It could be many things, hallucinating. If you are hallucinating, I hope it's going well. What's up, Gloria B? Another month, 24 months as a membo. Good to see you, Gloria B. Thanks for being here for 24 months. Added another month. Oh, how time flies. 2 months. Yeah, we've seen some serious stuff going on, haven't we, Gloria? What's going on? This one came in from James Anderson. Says, when are Pam and Cash going to lock up the corrupted? Well, I mean, the realistic answer is probably never going to happen. Like, who do you mean by corrupted? Like the January 6 co-conspirators, not looking good. The Epstein file co-conspirators, not looking good. Anyone else you want to talk about? Probably not looking good, right? We're looking a little bit rough at the moment, but we're hopeful. We're hopeful. Hey, insolence is the word. Rude and disrespectful behavior. Yeah, insolence is a good word. I will not tolerate this insolence. And I think insolence is a little bit more powerful than like insolent, kind of like an adjective. Like, don't be so insolent. We want it to be like, I will not tolerate this insolence as a noun. It's much more powerful, I think. Yeah. Maybe it's glory, hallelujah. Maybe, yeah, boopsie. Maybe it's glory, hallelujah instead of glory hallucinating. Could be. Probably better, if it's glory, hallelujah. But anyways, my friends, thank you for sending those amazing donos in. Thank you for being here. Thanks for supporting our work. Thanks for being membos and for the great fun and conversation on the day. Let's take a look at our friends on X, see who's joining us over there. And then, of course, we're going over to watching thewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party and membos. We'll be back in the morning, members only stream, 12 noon Eastern time in the mornings. And X is not loading at the moment. Okay, let's try this again. There it is. Very good to see that. Okay, let's see where we're at right now. Are we live? Is our video showing up on the screen? It kind of is. Here it is. Yeah. Not looking good. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. So it's not showing up. All right. What's up, Mini Tika? Good to see you. We got Free Thinking Latina. Says Judge Amy, U.S. District Court, U.S. Department of Crybabies. There it is. That's their name tag. That's their name tag. The department's not closed. We got them all those little stickers that you put on at those events that fall off in 2 seconds. Who made those stickers, by the way? Like, why isn't that person not in jail for fraud? You know that guy I'm talking about. Whoever made those stickers that you put, like, you're at an event. Like, oh, yeah, here's a name tag. Fill out your name tag. Put it on. Falls off instantly. How is that not criminal fraud? That whole company should be indicted immediately. All right, what's going on? Okay, so we have almost no comments on X because it looks like it malfunctioned today. But we had some other great comments that came in over on Locals. And so let's make sure we say hello to our Locals friends. What's up? Thank you, Donut, for clipping for us. We got this one from G-Men. Says, came from a sub, buried their uniforms, made their way to New York City's. That's the exact scenario of the Nazis that were executed under FDR. They just obviously weren't pregnant. Is that right, G-Men? That's an astute observation there. So they were pulling a scenario from when FDR in World War II. Interesting. Good observation there, G-Men. Jesser Bob says, Rob, I have been a faithful follower since March 2020. Yeah, these could always go one way or the other. You never know. It's like, but now, okay, it says, we didn't go that way. I am extremely grateful for the truth you bring to light. Thank you, Jester Bob. I am mostly a lurker, but have found my voice thanks to the Watchers. I am proud of you for your dedication to the truth, your ability to stay positive regardless of the challenges brought before you. Your true dedication to this community is unwavering. It has been a privilege to see this show, and more importantly, you grow with each show. Cheers to 5 more great years. Jesser Bob! What a nice comment, Jesser. Thank you for that. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately. It has been 5 years. We started this show about March 20th or so, 2020. And then Boopsy triggered me on the comment about where'd the name come from. I'm like, I don't know. It was so chaotic at the time. We were just like trying to survive COVID, and this all just came together in real time. And so it has been a real honor and a privilege of a lifetime, Jester Bob. And I feel like we're just getting warmed up here. I can't believe it's been 5 years. It's happened so quickly. But I feel like we've already had some good success here together. I feel like I have grown tremendously. To hear that you have the same is just an awesome thing, because that's really what I want ultimately, is I want us to grow and become better people, better Americans who can build a better society for all of us, because in a selfish way, that's better for me. If we have a stronger America with more free speech, more safety, better educated people, more successful, more leverage in our lives, more money, more freedom. Ultimately, it's about freedom and more truth. Then we're all better for it. So, Jester Bob, so, comment like this, it makes me feel like it's working, we're doing something, we're both in this symbiotic relationship where we're both leveling up, and it's a real honor to be here. Thank you for saying that, Jester Bob. I mean it. What's up, G-Men? It would take an amendment to require judges to be born here? Yeah, I think so. How come if Congress creates the courts? Do they not create the rules of the courts too? Well, I would say it's because the Constitution sets the category of qualifications. So if you're going to adjust the category of qualifications, then you would need to adjust the Constitution. Now, the Constitution says that Congress can adjust the jurisdiction of the courts, but not the qualifications of the judges. So I see them as two different categories. So Congress, yeah, by statute or by legislation could change the courts, but I think since the qualifications are discussed in the Constitution, if you want to modify those, you'd need an amendment, would be my take. Tobo, it would be fun to bring Grassley's bill just in time to keep senators there all weekend if they don't vote for cloture. That would be nice. Yeah, hopefully they get something like that done. This was a wild story too, Sergeant. Years ago, we covered Ghislaine Epstein and Virginia Giuffre, and she was in an accident, high speed, hitting a bus in Australia, going into kidney failure. She said she had like 4 days to live. Sergeant GPS flagging that for us. Man, I hope she gets that solved. Bizarre story. Thank you for that, Sergeant, for flagging it. Former's here. Says, Rob, I have an idea. Any federal judge that gets their decisions overturned 3 times, it's like baseball. You're out. Remove them from the federal court. Send them back down to the minors. Give them a seat in the traffic and misdemeanor courts until they learn to be competent. It truly looks like the federal judges got appointed to the bench with 0 prior experience as a lower court judge. Oh, yeah. Well, that's rampant. Okay, that's rampant. Like if you go over to Judge Chutkan, for example, Judge Chutkan, I have this in my notes. Here, let me share this with you. Judge Chutkan, I was looking at her work history, right? So her prior work history is not as a judge at all. She was before she got hired by Obama, right? This is Chutkan. She was appointed by Obama, born in Jamaica, never was a judge, never even clerked for a judge ever before. Here was her work history from her judicial application, right? Worked at a law firm. Firm doesn't exist, 90 to 91. Then was a public defender for about a decade out in D.C. Then went to work for Boyce Schiller. That's it. Then she became a judge. That's it. She was never a judge. A district court judge. So a woman born in Jamaica with no prior experience as a judge, other than working as a public defender, just became a judge and handled some of the most complex constitutional issues in America. What's going on over here? How is that appropriate at all? What's going on? Donut's amazing. Hey, G-Gum. G-Gum says, I just looked at my stocks. Oof. Yeah, I heard that. Heard it was a little rough out there today. Well, it's going to be the great liberation. So just worry about it. Don't worry about it. Buy the dip, as they say. This is not financial advice. But they say buy the dip. You know, when things dip, it's going to go back up. No doubt. Donut. Hey, Donut was clipping for us amazingly today. Donut, thank you. Donut says, sorry for the late clips. Didn't realize that John just disappeared and stopped clipping. Because John McGarvey hates us now. Thank you, John, for abandoning us like those liberal lawyers we talked about. Sheila Poo is here. Sheila Poo, a million hugs to you. Thank you for bringing in 10 new amazing membos, Sheila. Look who is coming in, new friends. Mr. T is here. Big Dog Mama in the house. We got Christina McBride, Jill Kraft, Feline Fun, Casey Atho. We got Sean Alfrey, GSG McLovin, Masonic 33, and Azure Sky. Gifted membos in the house. Thank you, Sheila Poo. A million hugs to you. Thanks for bringing in 10 new friends. And we're going to see all of our new members tomorrow on the members only stream in the morning, 12 noon Eastern. We can't wait to get into it. We have fun on the Membo shows. They're a lot of fun. Michelle's here. Michelle, thank you for this one. Says, my husband and I are residents of the same state. ID vote in X state because military orders relocated us and kids. What state would our kids be considered residents of? Well, I mean, I would say with you, right? I mean, do they reside with you? Like if they reside with you, I would say they're residents of wherever you're residing. I think that's what you're asking. So it sounds like you picked up your kids and moved with your kids. Now, like if your kids are in college or something and like they're residing in a separate state, then they would be residents of a separate state. But they're all U.S. citizens. And they would just have different residency depending on where they're located. But yeah, I mean, if they're living with you on the military base or they picked up and moved with you to that state or whatever, they'd be residents of that state. It's not tied to where they're born. Like you get like Arizona citizenship or something like that, right? We're all U.S. citizens, but we have different state domiciles and residence. And actually residency, I would say, is, it depends on the terms, right? But like you can establish residency in one state and then have a second home in another state, but you have to have a certain number of days in that state in order to qualify for residency. But you might have a second home somewhere else. So anyways, great question, Michelle. And thank you to you and your husband for serving our beautiful country. And shout out to your kids for moving with you. Doan says Article 3, Section 1, Clause 8.5 says Congress can defund lower federal courts. Yeah, no doubt. Congress can definitely set the jurisdiction of the courts, but not the qualifications of the judges, which would be set by the Constitution. So if you're going to modify the qualifications, I think it's going to require a much more substantial amendment. So good stuff. Anyways, great questions, my friends. Thank you for sending these in. And welcome to our new members. Great to have everybody coming in to join us. Can't wait to see you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is going to be the first day of Q2. Woo! That came here fast. Well, we're excited about it. It's going to be jamming. So, my friends, we're going to leave it there on the day. We're going over to locals. We're going to hang out for a little bit on our members-only after party. Before we wrap it up here, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who mod the fort down for us and keep things nice and orderly and beautiful around here. What's up, K-Bean? Donut, mind me. We got Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and beautiful and orderly around here. Thank you to G-Gum. Thank you to Just Rhonda. Thank you to Elliot, our dock master. My friends, that is where we're going to leave it on the day. Come join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Just going to hang out, debrief with our friends for a little bit. Of course, Membos, we're back in the morning, 12 noon Eastern, to get into it again. Otherwise, my friends, we'll be back here tomorrow. Same place, same time, to get into it again and see what the day has in store for us. And in order to do it appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.